立法會
The President. Members' motion with no legislative effect. Honourable Ka-fai's motion on enhancing the measures on the importation of manpower. Two members will move amendments to the motion. This Council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendments. Later, I will first call upon Mr. Peter SHIU to speak and move the motion. Then I'll call upon Dr. NGAN, Mr. Chun-keung to speak in sequence, but they may not move the amendments at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. I now call upon Mr. Peter SHIU to speak and move the motion. President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. President, every time I speak on a topic in the Council, I'll ponder whether the topic is necessary. Then I will think about how to approach it to make it work. This time, we're talking about measures on the importation of manpower. We'll first think about whether we have sufficient manpower. In relation to our demography, about a quarter of our population is over the age of 60. In a few years' time, well, over 1/3 of the population will be over the age of 60. Hong Kong has one of the lowest birth rates in the world. And at the same time, we have one of the longest life expectancy in the world. This issue has been with us for many years. In an older generation, you see parents having 7 to 8 children. Do we have sufficient manpower? You may hear from tourists that our quality of service is just so-and-so. I think it's not just an impression for tourists. It's for local as well. There is insufficient manpower in retail or catering businesses. It's a problem, but how do we deal with it? This is my 9th year here. When I first joined the Council, whenever we talked about manpower issues, I told the administration that there was a manpower shortage and it might be possible to import labor. But every time I was told to release manpower of women, elderly people, to make it easier for them to work. The direction is right, as long as it works. Over the years, we have exhausted many avenues. Is the problem solved? We can all see it's a demographic problem. We need help from the outside. That's why in April 2023, I moved a motion to import labor from the GBA, and the laborers can travel to work and back home on the same day. Application was open starting from the 9th of April upon the government's endorsement. There are about 50,000 laborers in my industry. Counting the other industries, there are about 70,000. It only accounts 2% of our total workforce of about 3 million. In Singapore, imported labor accounts for 25%. In Macau, 1/3. 1/3 of their population. So with such a huge discrepancy, what are the problems? I'm sure that you can tell whether we have sufficient manpower. This is the only way out. A year or so has passed. I was told by different sectors that because of the requirement of 9,600 training levy as well as wage over the median income, businesses find that it's more costly to hire imported labor. Well, if you offer a wage that is above median wage, it's quite high. And then you add to it accommodation. You can imagine how high the overall wage is. In the past, when the government talked about levies and fees, say those on environmental protection, I always said there's nothing we can do. But with the increase in levy and fees, in the end, the cost is shifted onto customers. In turn, it affects businesses. And if businesses can't hold out, then they'll have to close. If we do not have competitiveness, then the formula to shift the additional cost to customers will not work. Hong Kong people go to the mainland to spend. Now, consumers have more choices. So if you shift the cost onto them, they simply go elsewhere. So if you don't find a solution, then it will be a harder time for businesses. I heard from businesses in recent years that they can't survive. You have read from the news that Dr. NGAN has amended my motion. The core issue of my motion is to strengthen our manpower capabilities. And I say that it is a huge obstacle, that is the median income. Dr. NGAN deleted that part, and he talked about getting more local people to work. The direction is right, but I've seen what happened in the past 9 years. What improvement have we seen? You see, we see women working as drivers, bus drivers, and elderly people working till they're in their 70s. The deletion of that part, will it work? What I said was just to consider it, to study into it. Some people are concerned that it will cause unemployment for local people, but in Singapore, that is not the case. If you look at different sectors, say you have to hire 2 local people before you hire an imported person. Well, then, if you want to accord priority to local laborers, then make it 3 local workers for 1 imported worker. And that's what Mr. Chun-keung's amendment is about. In Singapore, the GDP per capita, even with that amount of imported worker, is about $3,000 US. In Macau is about just over 13,000. Hong Kong 70,000. The average wage of Singaporean laborers or workers are just $30,000. So give it some serious thought. The real issue of the motion is about importation of manpower and whether we need to review the requirement of a pay that is over the median wage. I now put the question to you that Mr. Peter SHIU's motion be passed. Dr. NGAN.
Thank you, President. For labor importation scheme or enhanced supplementary labor scheme, they are aimed at addressing the manpower shortage in Hong Kong. This is a problem in Hong Kong. We need to replenish the labor force. In 2028, according to the government, we will be short of 180,000 laborers, especially in the construction sector and in the elderly care sector. But I'd like to say that the importation of workers is simply a band-aid solution. We cannot rely on it. In the medium to long term, we'll have to rely on manpower planning and employee training. That's why in the amendment, I proposed that the administration should adopt measures to unleash the labor force of elderly people and females. The DAB thinks that the existing labor importation schemes need to be reviewed on a regular basis, including the scope of sectors, eligibility criteria, and so on. We are waiting for the CNSD for the thematic report on the impact on the labor market. We need to have a scientific method to study the impact on the local labor market. In order to keep the schemes in line with the intended goal, we'll have to take into account the demand and supply of laborers in Hong Kong. Say for sectors with the most serious manpower shortage, say the F&B sector and the hotel sector, they need to be incorporated or they need to be covered in the sector-specific labor importation schemes. Say we need to shorten the application time and streamline application procedures. And that also includes the accommodation arrangements mentioned by Mr. Peter SHIU in his original motion. SMEs need to replenish the labor force more easily. In relation to my amendment, I'd like to give you more information. First of all, I'd like to apologize to Mr. Peter SHIU that we, DAB, cannot accept the fact that the median monthly wages of foreign domestic helpers should not be lower than the local workers in Hong Kong. We need to address the manpower shortage in Hong Kong. We do not aim at importing cheap laborers from outside Hong Kong, which will affect the local wage levels. At the same time, the measure is aimed at preventing the problem of having different wages for the same position in Hong Kong. Median wages are compiled by the CNSD in Hong Kong. This is an important measure in the labor market in Hong Kong. We don't think we should easily make any changes to the median wages in Hong Kong. I want to improve the existing schemes so that laborers will better meet the expectations of employers when they come to Hong Kong to join the labor market. There are two things we need to do. First of all, there should be direct collaboration mechanisms between the training organizations in outside Hong Kong and the companies in Hong Kong. There should be direct introduction or seminars, especially in relation to workplace culture, code of practice, or basic Cantonese training. All these will help import laborers to equip themselves with the necessary skills required so that they will have a basic understanding of what they will need in Hong Kong. They will find it easier to adapt to the working environment in Hong Kong. Evaluation, appraisals, if we can fare better in this regard, then employees will find it easier to adapt to the labor market in Hong Kong. The crux of my amendment is about assessment. We need to accord priority to employing local workers so that the local economy will have the impetus to keep advancing so that there will be stability in our society. Thank you. Mr. Lee Chun-keung, according to the 2023 manpower projection published by the government, the labor force will increase from 3.5 million in 2023 to 3.75 million in 2028. The manpower gap will further widen. In fact, we need to work on measures in the short, medium to long term in order to address the manpower shortage issue in Hong Kong. In the short run, we will have to import laborers from outside Hong Kong. Mr. Peter SHIU advocates that the median wages of foreign imported workers shouldn't be lower than those for local workers. And in my amendment, On the premise of ensuring the employment priority for local workers, we need to set quotas for different industries by following the practices of labor importation in South Korea, Singapore, and Macau. The reason behind this is very simple. Take the cosmetics industries as an example. The beautician's median wages are $24,300. So even for an experienced practitioner, the wages will not be lower than the set figure. Accommodation costs will also be included. If we need to engage an experienced practitioner, the local wages won't reach $24,300 at all. So when local beauticians cannot earn this wage, they will require their employers to increase their salaries, and this will result in an increasing wages. This will be locked in a vicious cycle. There will be even a snowballing effect, which will increase the general price levels in Hong Kong. This will affect the long-term competitive edge of Hong Kong, which is exactly what we do not want to see. I think the administration should accord priority to employing local workers. We also need to strike a good balance. So I suggest setting quotas for different industries in Hong Kong. We also need to relax the eligibility criteria or the ratio that is 1 to 2. There shouldn't be any hard and fast requirement in this regard. We need to take into account the actual circumstances in different industries. For those with a more serious manpower shortage, we need to set quotas in order to solve the manpower shortage problem in Hong Kong. When enterprises have sufficient manpower, we can enhance our competitive edge, and we can also protect the job stability of local workers, and their wages won't be affected by the increasing price levels. Mr. Peter SHIU referred to the practice in Singapore. Bus drivers, construction workers, management professionals, they import all these employees. About $6.04 million employees in Singapore. About 4 million people are about 1/4 of the set figure are imported from outside Singapore. For the maximum ratio, there are different figures for different industries. Macau has a population of 700,000. According to statistics, about 490,000 working population. Imported workers account for about 37%, standing at 180,000. They work in the hotel industry. For one imported worker, employers will have to employ 3 local workers. The purpose is to accord priority to employing local workers. Well, I have to say that imported workers are not a draconian measure. Instead, this will decrease the general price levels for a particular place. We need a package of measures. Well, one of the amendments deleted the wages in relation to imported workers. Well, your time is up. Please stop.
Secretary for Labor and Welfare. President, I thank Mr. SHIU Ka-fai for moving today's motion, Mr. Ng Yu and Mr. Chun-keung for moving their amendments, so that members can express their views on this very important subject. I will listen carefully to members' views and would like to take this opportunity to explain to members the measures taken by the government to supplement the workforce in Hong Kong and the progress that we've made. First, the government's manpower policy. An adequate workforce is an important driving force for the sustainable economic and social development of Hong Kong. The government's manpower policy has all along been focused on nurturing the local workforce. At the same time, through employment services, publicity, and promotion, the government supports job seekers to seek employment and unleashes the local workforce. In the face of the challenge of labor shortage, on the premise of giving priority to local workers in employment, the government has relaxed the labor importation schemes to allow employers to apply for importation of labor in a more flexible manner, so as to alleviate the problem of manpower shortage. Apart from launching sector-specific importation schemes for the construction industry, the transport industry, as well as the residential care homes for the elderly and persons with disabilities, the Labor Department has also implemented the Enhanced Supplementary Labor Scheme with effect from the 4th of September 2023 to enhance the coverage and operation of the former Supplementary Labor Scheme, including the suspension of the general prohibition on importation of labor for 26 jobs categories, such as salespersons, waitresses, and junior chefs, and for unskilled or low-skilled jobs for a period of 2 years. The suspension will last for 2 years and will alleviate the problem of manpower shortage in various trades and industries and promote the economic and social development of Hong Kong. As at 28th of February 2025, the Labor Department received a total of 11,342 applications under the enhanced scheme, involving applications for importation of 98,065 workers and approved 7,380 applications involving 51,051 quotas during the period. Since the implementation of the enhanced scheme, the Labor Department has continued to improve the application processing procedures, including the introduction of a form applicable to common posts in May last year, with a view to expediting the processing of applications. These measures have yielded significant results. In the second half of 2024, 4,020 applications were approved under the scheme, representing a significant increase of 134% over the 1,719 applications approved in the first half of 2024. The arrival of imported workers to supplement local workforce will facilitate business development. In accordance with the labor policy of the SAR government, any mechanism for importation of labor must be premised on the employment priority for local workers. Therefore, applicant employers under the enhanced scheme are required to conduct a 4-week local open recruitment exercise to fill vacancies with suitable local workers with a priority at a wage level no less than the median monthly wage of comparable jobs in the market. Only when there are unfilled vacancies after this process can the employers import workers. Also, employers who have been approved to import workers under the enhanced scheme are required to enter into a standard employment contract with imported workers and pay them wages not lower than the median wage for comparable jobs. The community has different views and concerns on the labor importation policy. The Labor Department is reviewing the enhancement of the scheme and meeting with stakeholders such as major trade unions and labor organizations. I hope to listen to more views through today's debate so that our labor importation policy can balance the interests of local workers and employers and promote the sustainable development of Hong Kong's economy and society. President, I will listen carefully to members and then give a consolidated reply in my closing remarks. President, so submit.
管浩明議員
Referent Peter Kun. Thank you, President. At present, the unemployment rate stands at 3.1% in Hong Kong. We have reached the level of all employment in Hong Kong. Different sectors will have to recruit more workers, from blue-collar workers to white-collar workers, to low-skilled to highly skilled workers. There's a manpower shortage across all sectors. Retail, transportation, F&B, they bear the brunt of a manpower shortage problem. With an aging population, there is a structural labor force shrinkage. The immigration wave also shows how serious the problem is. There were opposing views pointing out that the importation of workers will steal jobs away from local workers, and they will also drive down the wage levels of local workers. But from a macro level, importation of workers will affect the quality of jobs in Hong Kong, and they will also affect local economic activities. I'm afraid we won't be able to achieve our intended goal. There will also be a knock-on effect, say fewer employees, and the wages will rise. Productivity is not enhanced, but enterprises still need support, and they will only have to increase prices. The price levels in Hong Kong are very high. We have a heavy burden. Enterprises have businesses, but then they lack workers. They will have to give up on expansion, or they will cut down on their business by having shorter working hours. The gap in manpower will affect the economic recovery in Hong Kong. This is a vicious cycle, and it is employees and the grassroots who will be affected. If we emphasize giving priority to employing local workers, then we won't be able to achieve the intended goal. Is the importation of workers really not a good solution? Let's take Singapore as an example. For two factors, Singapore has overcome two bottlenecks. Reclamation helps them reduce the construction costs. They import workers as well. The entire population of Singapore is about 6.4 million. Foreign population about 1.86 million. In other words, accounting for over 30% of the entire population. Even if the population is smaller than ours, the GDP per capita is much higher than ours. So last year, the GDP per capita in Singapore climbed to 1.04 million Hong Kong dollars. But then our GDP only stands at 584,000. It is not a direct comparison, but at least we can see that simply by importing workers, local workers won't see a drop in their wages. But then if the economy is not faring well, this will exert the most serious impact on local workers. That's why we need a comprehensive importation of worker measure in order to address the manpower shortage problem in Hong Kong. In relation to the ESLS, Enhanced Supplementary Labor Scheme, approval is much more flexible and targeted. A coin has two sides. The mechanism will be subject to abuse. There will also be reduction of wages by the intermediaries. The administration needs to take into account socioeconomic changes and set quotas accordingly. They should also protect the employment opportunities for local workers. Thank you, President. I so submit.
Mr. Jimmy, thank you. In economics, there are three elements: manpower, capital, and land. Manpower is an important element. Without manpower, it's difficult for Hong Kong to be creative. Without manpower, businesses can't expand. So we have to attract talent and maintain a good level of manpower. According to the manpower projection, by 2028, there will be a shortage of manpower by about 180,000. For skilled workers, non-skilled workers, and those working in the service industry, will have a manpower shortage of about 140 to 147,000 people. It's rather alarming. On the 26th of February, I asked a written question. I said that there are concerns from the business sector that manpower crunch will limit business development. We asked the administration to come up with some solutions. At that time, I asked questions in relation to the supplementary labor scheme and the enhanced as well as the sector-specific labor importation schemes. I asked in relation to the sector-specific scheme whether it will be possible to expand the sectors. The government said that they will assess the situation, future manpower, demand and supply, and make announcements as suitable. There is no direct answer as to whether the sector will be expanded. In relation to the enhanced supplementary labor scheme, it only lasts for 2 years. I asked the administration if it will be regularized or extended. The government said that the Labor Department has been monitoring the implementation of the enhanced scheme. They will fully consider the needs of worker unions, employers unions, as well as stakeholders. Again, my question was not answered. Mr. SHIU's motion is to ask for enhancing measures on the importation of manpower to keep our manpower level healthy to sustain economic development. I fully support his motion because it answers our demand. How do we enhance measures of importation of manpower? First, there is room for adjustments to the number of imported laborers and the ratio. Currently, imported worker to local workers is 1:2. I think the administration can consider more flexible approaches. The administration of the schemes can be streamlined because it's focused more on formality. Perhaps when an application is made, recruitment can start. Time required for application for travel documents and visas can be shortened. There can be shorter measures to plug the gap. There are seasonal changes. There can be temporary recruitment schemes to hire casual laborers or short-term workers. We can also take reference from Macau, South Korea, and Singapore to come up with specific measures for different sectors. I strongly support that. In relation to the amendments, the BPA thinks that there is a need to constantly assess the demand and supply of the situation. Mr. Tan Yue-han, the government has implemented the enhanced supplementary labor scheme. It's almost 2 years. And there's also the sector-specific labor importation scheme. They aim to address the issue of manpower crunch in specific sectors. How do we enhance the importation of manpower? We have an aging population. There is a need to upgrade and transform our businesses. So we need strategic manpower policies. We need to ensure that vacancies are filled without affecting local job opportunities. I support the motion. I ask the government to enhance measures to support importation of manpower. There should be studies conducted. The overall work environment in Hong Kong should be improved. I have some suggestions. First, we have to make adjustments on importation of manpower. We need to take into account sector-specific data to make our measures more targeted. In the labor market, there are vacancies, and at the same time, there are people unemployed. The indicators of sector-specific employment situation should be promulgated. We need to know about the sector-specific situations. The data can cover skill level of local laborers, number of vacancies, reliance on manpower. Then we make use of this system to launch measures. Enterprises can make use of the data to launch specific measures as well. The indicators can also be used to adjust quotas of imported labor. Say, for example, if on two consecutive sessions there is a high vacancy level, then more imported manpower can be allowed. This will be a dynamic balance. Secondly, supporting measures should be put in place to ensure the rights of imported workers. Well, under the premise of priority to local laborers, the working environment, remuneration can all be of imported workers can be improved to strike a balance. There can be cross-departmental efforts by setting up a working group on imported labor. There should be an avenue for imported workers to defend their rights. Benefits for imported workers on the same level as local workers should be offered. There can be a blacklist to decide the eligibility of imported laborers. Thirdly, there should be upscaling laborers to rely on reliance on imported workers. Government can put in place training schemes to train low-skill or low-skill workers. There can be automation, the use of technology, and assist enterprises, SMEs, to make use of robotics and technology to replace repetitive tasks. A number of training organizations can be mobilized. There can be different training courses to upskill laborers so that they can move towards higher skill levels. We highly rely on manpower for economic development. Labor is important. The market itself should be open. It should be conducive to mobility so that Hong Kong's economic development as well as competitiveness can be consolidated. Ms. Lam So-wai, thank you. We have a shrinking labor force. There are a large number of vacancies in skilled positions. SMEs are having difficulties in their business operation. So labor workers as well as employers are not happy with the situation. In Sai Kung, there are a lot of shops that have closed. Some of them have a long history. We need to maintain a certain level of imported worker. This is an expedient measure. Looking at the second suggestion of the original motion, I must say that I have a reservation. Foreign domestic helpers compete with local workers. However, foreign domestic helpers help families where parents go out to work. So there is no need for their wage level to be pegged with the market level. So there is no comparability between imported workers and foreign domestic workers. Suggestions to offer accommodation for imported workers must be carefully considered. Well, there is a large number of imported workers in the construction site, but there is a limit on accommodation. If you construct accommodation at construction site, there are difficulties. Well, if you allow the imported workers to stay with their family, it will be a solution. Employers can save cost. But I think we can expedite integration of imported laborers because it will increase productivity. However, it will increase compliance cost as well. Some unscrupulous employers may select laborers without accommodation needs. There may be illegal workers as well. This is a double-edged sword. The government needs to consider very carefully. On a number of occasions, the government emphasized that priority should be given to local employees. Their remunerations and benefits should be protected. The imported labor schemes have been put in place for a number of years. I think the government put the responsibility of being disciplined on employers. Enterprises focus on profits. The fact is that importing workers is more cost effective. A lot of enterprises work in the gray area. As a result, there is no effective recruitment of local workers. There's a picture they have painted. Sometimes they make use of loopholes to try to force local laborers out of the company. When it comes to rights of imported workers, well, we see that it's rather prevalent that there are two contracts. The one submitted to the government says that there is a wage above median income. However, in the real contract, the wage is much lower. Imported laborers have no choice but to put up with it. At the moment, penalties are only a suspension of application by about 6 to 12 months. There is no deterrent effect. You only have to carry out random checks on contractors to protect the rights of imported workers. Extending the importation of manpower measures is feasible, but it is not sustainable. We should look at other places. We can also draw reference from the approach of Singapore, put in place a ratio. If an enterprise employs a number of imported laborers above a certain level, then they will have to pay additional tax. In addition, there can be a requirement of employing one local workers before you can hire imported workers. I so submit.
Dr. Lo Wai-kwok, President, I thank Mr. Ka-fai for moving the original motions and the two other members for moving their amendments. President, this debate is about enhancing the measures on the importation of manpower. There is a consensus in the community that we should prioritize employment for local workers, but we are faced with this reality. We are facing a decline in fertility rate and we have an aging population. Different industries are faced with manpower shortage. The government promulgated the manpower projection for 2028. 17 industries are selected, including the industries relating to 8 centers and 9 significant sectors. The government have made some manpower projection for 2028. It was found that there is manpower shortage in many different industries. The total number of shortage is 180,000. The surveys conducted by different associations have achieved or come up with the same result. According to another study, the manpower shortage for technical workers, semi-skilled workers, will see a shortage of 5 to 15%. In 2027, the shortage will rise to 15 to 20%. We should not ignore this problem. Otherwise, the development of various industries and the northern metropolis may be heavily impacted. As a result, the commercial and industrial sector, and I think that the government should continue to improve the measures on importation of manpower to fill the gap in the workforce so that our society and economy can continue to develop. President, manpower shortage is prevalent across different industries. The government have rolled out many different schemes to solve the issue. In June 2023, the government rolled out the supplementary labor scheme as well as enhanced measures. The government suspended the general exclusion of the 26 job categories for 2 years. The government also improved the workflow of the Labor Advisory Board. The TLB also rolled out the sector-specific labor importation schemes to offer 12,000 to and 8,000 quotas for the construction and transportation sectors. There is further room for improvement for these measures. Say, for example, the sector-specific importation scheme for construction sector only apply for public works projects. However, the government says that some private works project can apply for such importation. I have put in a written question to the government asking them to set out clear guidelines on the importation of workers for private works project. For tourism sector, the government should also roll out sector-specifically for importation schemes for them. These schemes have been rolled out for a number of years. The government should review the effectiveness and make adjustment when appropriate. President, in order for us to alleviate the manpower shortage in various industries and trades, the SAR government should improve various measures on the importation of manpower, increase the number of imported workers. They should also adopt multi-pronged approach. In 2023, the labor participation rate is 55.2%, far lower than major economies in Asia. The government should promote training and retraining, as well as offer employment support to the people, as well as to introduce AI and IT so that we can enhance the quality and quantity of labor in Hong Kong, so that we can unleash the potential of local workforce and enhance productivity. Mr. SHIU Ka-fai asked the government to review the requirement that the wages of imported workers should not be lower than the median monthly wages of relevant positions in Hong Kong in order to enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness. The PPA and the business sector have made similar requests, but Dr. Nguyen Yu's amendment deleted the relevant suggestion, so the BPA members and I would have reservations about Dr. Nguyen's amendment, as also submit. Mr. Yan Wen-kit. Thank you, President. Well, first of all, I thank Mr. SHIU Ka-fai for moving the motion so that we have this opportunity to talk about sector-specific labor importation scheme and the enhanced supplementary labor scheme. We welcome these schemes because they allow the construction sector, for example, to import workers so that they can operate normally. Because as we all know, some sectors are faced with difficulties in hiring enough workers. The manpower shortage issue has been here in Hong Kong for a long time. It has to do with structural problems of Hong Kong. We have many vacancies in several positions. Importation of manpower is a short-term measure. Over the long run, we must step up training for local workers so that we can supply manpower to some sectors. I think that some industries should increase their salary to attract more workers. We shall not rely on this short-term measure, that is the importation of manpower. By this, we will not be able to protect local workers, and it's not a long-term solution. Mr. SHIU Ka-fai said that we should make reference to the wage of foreign domestic helpers, but that market is very much different, and it helps our society very much. We all know that families in Hong Kong rely on the foreign domestic helpers to look after their children so that they can go out to work. Foreign domestic helpers help support a local workforce. We should not compare the wage of imported workers to that of foreign domestic helpers. That's not practicable and reasonable. I support the sector-specific labor importation schemes, but some businessmen abuse the system. On the street, I came across a worker working in the airport who told me that they lost their part-time job. Many people who work in the airports told me the same thing. Some work in the residential care homes for the elderly. They said that they are unable to find a job after the care homes have imported workers. We must not abuse labor importation schemes. Otherwise, it will undermine the interest of local workers. Also, I think that we need to keep the requirements that the wages of imported workers should not be lower than the median monthly wages of relevant positions in Hong Kong. Otherwise, more people will become unemployed. Mr. Chun-keung asked if there is a quotas for all of the labor importation schemes. As we all know, it's very difficult for us to hire Legislative Council member assistants. By the same logic, I think that we should be able to import workers to work as our assistants. The median monthly wage of university graduates is 6,300 on the mainland. If we are able to import mainland graduates, then all of our existing assistants will lose their job. But is this what we want to see? We can improve our schemes, but we need to protect the employment of local workers. So I will support Dr. Ng Yu's amendment. I will vote against Mr. SHIU Ka-fai and Mr. Chun-keung's motion and amendment. Frankie Yik. Thank you, President. Given the declining fertility rate and the aging population, the workforce in Hong Kong continue to drop. The employment rate in Hong Kong amount to 3%. Many different industries and sectors are faced with a manpower shortage. Although technology alleviates the manpower demand of some industries, some positions require manual labor. They cannot be completely replaced by technology. Shortage of manpower undermines the development of some industries and it hinders Hong Kong economic growth. For aviation, residential care, construction, and some other sectors, the government rolled out the sector-specific labor importation schemes. For non-franchised bus and minibus sector, the government rolled out the importation scheme that allowed for the sector to import 800 imported workers. As of today, the sector is satisfied with the performance of the imported drivers. They think that they will help the sector to improve the quality of their service. For minibus operators, they said that they have a vacancy of 60% during the peak. Since the importation scheme, the vacancies have dropped and they're able to offer journeys of higher frequency. However, the 2-year period for the schemes is going to expire. I hope that the government will work with the trade so that the drivers can extend their contract. For goods vehicles and minibus trade, they still lack drivers. We need new blood to fill all these vacancies in the trade. While these 1,700 quotas for the transportation trade is about to be exhausted, I think that we should not only extend the scheme but also increase the number of quotas to fill the vacancies of drivers on the trade. The government estimate that the minibus and goods vehicle trade lack 3,600 drivers. However, out of the 1,700 quotas, that's only account for half of the estimated shortage. In order to meet the passengers' demand, the government must increase the number of quotas and adjust the ratio of local to imported workers 2 to 1 to 1 to 1 or 1 to 1.5. Also, the aviation industry is accorded with a quota of 6,300. After the third round of recruitment, the quotas is going to be exhausted. In order to meet the manpower demand of the aviation industry, 6,300 quotas is definitely not enough. 6,300 account for only half of the total manpower needed. We still need a few thousand more workers in the airport. With the implementation of the 3-runway system, we will even need more manpower in the airport. The government said that the requirement for imported workers' wages should not be lower than that of the median monthly wages of relevant positions, but the employers only make reference to the statistics of the CNSD. They only take the number that is assigned for workers who have worked only 0 to 4 years. And the wages of imported workers are sometimes higher than local workers. As the contract for imported workers can last only 2 years, the employers have to pay a one-off payment of $9,600 employees retraining levy, coupled with accommodation fee, retraining fee, recruitment charges. The employers have to incur very high costs to import workers, as some drivers need to take more than one test in order to pass the driving test. The costs incurred by the employers is very high, and in turn that would drive up the wages of local workers. So I think that the government should review the requirement of median monthly wages, or even cancel the requirement, so that the cost can be lowered for businessmen.
Mr. Sunny Tan. Thank you, President. Healthy economic development hinges on manpower supply. Different sectors in Hong Kong have manpower shortage. The Labor and Welfare Bureau announced the 2023 manpower projections last year. Up to 2028, the local labor force cannot meet the demand for the labor force required in 2028. I'm concerned about the labor importation schemes. Both employees and employers want to enhance the existing labor importation measures in order to protect local workers. We also want to provide a competitive business environment. I have 3 suggestions. 1, we need to set competitive remuneration packages. There is the existing requirement that the wages of imported workers should not be lower than the median monthly wages of the relevant positions in Hong Kong. To enterprises, wages, accommodation costs, transportation fees, they are similar to or higher than the wages for local workers, and this will affect the competitiveness of Hong Kong. And we'll have to refer to the international landscape. Say foreign domestic helper, FDH 4 years ago, on average, in South Korea, $13,500 were offered in order to attract more foreign domestic helpers. The market rate is lower than the median wage in Hong Kong, so we shouldn't ask for the same. Using the international market price to employ workers will help us keep our competitive edge. I suggest that the administration should refer to the international market. We should also enhance liaison with the industry. We need to set reasonable training fees, accommodation costs, and so on. This will help keep in check the SME's rising operating costs. We should also encourage enterprises to spend the resources on retraining employees and upskill their employees, so that they can improve together with enterprises. We should also introduce a quota system. Some members said that enterprises exploit legal loopholes not to employ local workers. This means there is room for improvement. We should draw reference from Singapore. We need to make adjustments as necessary to the quota system in Hong Kong in different sectors. We should also look into the manpower supply and demand. After we have achieved full employment, we should also set quota for laborers in relation to importation. We should also put in place a mechanism in order to ensure consistent supply and demand of laborers. We need to have measures in the short, medium, and long term. For obnoxious job positions, because of structural issues, there's a lack of new blood. Take elderly services as an example. Since 2017, the government has been enhancing the scheme. better remuneration packages are provided in order to attract more people to work in the sector. But then the result has been limited. In 2022, the Secretary for Labor and Welfare pointed out in his blog entry that it is not possible to meet the existing demand. We should draw reference from other jurisdictions to look into the situation. We need to take stock of the experience with the importation schemes to formulate short, medium to long-term measures in order to meet the manpower demand in Hong Kong. I expect that the government should get an appropriate understanding of the supply and demand of different sectors in Hong Kong so that we can improve our competitive edge when it comes to labor supply. Thank you, President. Mr. Chao Siu-chung. President, the original motion can be summarized in one single sentence. Importing workers without quotas at a cheap or at a low price, well, I'm definitely against it. A total of 75,000 laborers have been imported since 2023. From the ESLS, a total of 51,000 have been imported into Hong Kong. So how can we protect the jobs of local workers? Different problems have surfaced. There are also opposing views. An obvious trend is that after the importation of workers, enterprises will reduce the number of subcontracted workers. These workers lose their jobs. At the airport, we can see this problem. For long-term jobs, they aren't much better either. Local workers bear the brunt. In the news program, in the F&B sector, they said the same. When enterprises find that they have sufficient manpower, they will let local workers go, or they will turn them into part-time workers. However, imported workers still keep their jobs, or they take jobs away from local workers. Should we let this phenomenon continue? I hope that the administration won't naively believe that companies will, first of all, let imported workers go before letting local workers go. Many restaurants employ imported workers, and they only take on a small number of local workers or casual workers. 1 year ago, local workers found it difficult to look for a job, not least for a full-time job. The wages have been lowered. The economic recovery is slowing. According to the CNSD, job vacancies are decreasing. As at the end of 2024, there were only 3,800 vacancies, a year-on-year decrease of 30% compared with the peak of 8,700 in 2018. The figure has decreased. The unemployment rate was 3.5% and 4.1% for two different sectors, and the latest figures rose to 3.9% and 5%. Therefore, I see no reason for importing workers from outside Hong Kong. After we have imported workers in the grassroots are forced to take up obnoxious jobs, and their wages have been reduced as well. We shouldn't continue with the enhanced supplementary labor scheme. We need to remove the suspension of the general exclusion of the 26 job categories. Mr. Peter Schill pointed out in the question 2 years ago that we need to keep the median wage in order that local workers will be employed. We hope for different sectors when they import workers, they will take the median wage as a reference. We shouldn't give up on keeping the median wage even for imported workers. The median wage is an important tool in the importation scheme. This is the last line of defense to protect local workers. There is no room for reviewing the mechanism. We need to rely on local workers. We need to unleash the silver hair as well as women in Hong Kong. We also need to promote VPAT. I hope that the administration will continue to enhance efforts on this front. I so submit I'm against the original motion and all amendments. Thank you. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Thank you, Deputy President. The U.S. announced that they would escalate tariffs. The BPA is against such a measure. We express regret. This undermines global competitiveness. Manufacturing industry and different sectors will have to enhance their competitive edge. So when it comes to the importation scheme, we will have to remove barriers to ensure different sectors in Hong Kong will have sufficient manpower so that different sectors will not be in dire straits. Deputy President, labor force is very important to economic development. There is an aging population in Hong Kong. There are also succession gaps in different sectors in Hong Kong. According to the manpower projection of the administration, by 2028, the shortfall of manpower will rise to 180,000, and the number of younger workers will decrease. So we find it necessary to import workers. There are quite many new arrangements for importing workers. There are also regular reviews, say the Enhanced Supplementary Labor Scheme ESLS. This will help with the importation of workers. Some say that employers import workers because they want to save money, but this is outright wrong. Under the existing system, employers will have to solve many problems in order to import workers. They will have to, first of all, undertake a 4-week local recruitment exercise and a core priority to employing suitable local workers. Then they will have to go to the Labor Department, which will then refer candidates to the companies. Then the LAB will also be involved. The wages of imported workers should not be lower than the median monthly wages of the relevant positions in Hong Kong. The employers will also have to bear accommodation costs. Opportunities wait for no one. If Hong Kong wants to enhance economic development, we'll have to streamline the arrangements for importing workers. Usually it takes 9 months to 12 months to import workers. This is time-consuming. The administration should streamline the procedures for work visas and entry-exit visas. The administration should also relax the requirements in relation to the accommodation arrangements for imported workers. They should be allowed to live in a place, to live and work in different places. Less than 10% of the accommodation costs can be deducted from the wages of an imported worker, but owing to the high cost of accommodation, usually employers will have to pay more to set off the accommodation costs. Employers will also have to rent premises to provide accommodation to employees. When employees leave prematurely, then employers will have to lose some rentals paid. At the same time, the government should allow the provision of subsidies to reduce the financial risks of companies. There are serious manpower shortage issues across different sectors, say the F&B industry and the tourism sector. The BPA advocates launching new labor importation scheme. We should also enhance publicity to provide more information about the labor importation scheme. Over the last few years, a lot have happened in Hong Kong. We will have to catch up, and I hope that the administration will take on board our views. The administration should take a bold move to import workers to come to Hong Kong to replenish our local labor force. They should also plug the skills gap and bring vitality to Hong Kong. Thank you.
Mr. Edward Lau. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I support Dr. Ngan's amendment. I think it fits Hong Kong's current situation when we have a structural manpower shortage problem. I've been pondering over this issue. I've been talking to bureaus and departments. At the same time, I hear from employers or businesses that it's difficult to hire, and they always have vacancies. When I talk to people in the streets or when I see chats in groups, I hear that it's more difficult to find a job. Nowadays, you will have to make 10 applications before you land yourself a job. So there are different views. How do we strike a balance? The government launched the Enhanced Supplementary Labour Scheme. It will expire this year. Perhaps reviews are being undertaken. This is the right time to have this discussion. The Secretary can hear different views. He can make a decision as to whether to enhance or extend the enhanced scheme. In the past 2 years, with the enhanced scheme, the manpower shortage problem should have been alleviated. But I do think that two principles should be abided by. First, priority to local employees, and the imported labor schemes should be targeted to avoid conflicts. I see that conflicts are surfacing. The government needs to do something. There are 26 job categories under the enhanced schemes. Should they all be covered? Should there be a cap? Should there be adjustments in accordance with the economic situation? More and more people nowadays tell me that it's more difficult to find a job. Some become unemployed. We do need to regularly review the scope of the enhanced scheme as well as the eligibility. Adjustments need to be made as necessary. We need to pay attention to the implementation of the enhanced scheme. If there are sectors that can't hire, then there may be imported labor. But I see that there are businesses putting up a post of a vacancy. People go to answer the ads, but then they were told that the post has been filled. So these are actually bogus vacancies, vacancy advertisements. They just go through the motion to say that, well, we have done it, we can't hire. So is it a genuine move or just to fill the requirement under the enhanced scheme? On the issue of median income, I said on many occasions that I have reservations. Say in the construction industry in Macau, there is a wage of 15,000 on the mainland, 6,000 in Hong Kong, 30,000, double that of Macau. You can't help but feel like you've been deceived. I see that actually laborers don't receive the entirety of the wage. Most of it goes to the agencies, even though they're paid above the median wage. I think the government can set up a fund and use it to train local laborers to upskill. Is it the case that businesses will hire lower wage laborers? Well, we want to make sure that you offer a wage that is reasonable to hire someone you need. Mr. Kenneth Fogg. At the start, the Secretary said that in order to stabilize manpower supply in 2022, the government has put in place measures to address the issues. Currently, there are 2 enhanced importation of labor schemes, hiring about 71,000 people. Is it sufficient? I think it depends on where you stand. However, this is the right time to have a discussion. It is the right time to use imported labor to address the manpower shortage. I do agree with this general direction. According to the latest manpower projection in 2024, in the coming 5 years, there will be an increasing number of manpower shortage. By 2028, there will be 180,000 vacancies. Well, we're working on developing 8 centers. To transform and upgrade, we need imported labor. When we assess the effectiveness, we can't just look at the quotas of the schemes. We also have to look at how the schemes are implemented. We have to avoid adding costs to businesses, and at the same time, we have to strike a balance in the local labor market. For catering industries, there are 47,000 imported laborers. They work as chefs and waiters. It shows that there is a huge demand. However, when it comes to processing of application, it doesn't meet the needs of various sectors. I have some suggestions. First, to relax the location of work. They should be allowed to work at different branches of the same chain. Employers are required to designate the scope of duties as well as the location of work to fit the standard contract requirements. However, if they need to deploy the persons elsewhere, this is not allowed. Sometimes under a chain company, employees are deployed to different branches to work. I think that in the same contract period, employers should be given the flexibility to deploy to address the changes in needs of their operation. This will also enhance the effectiveness of these schemes. There should be expedition of application processing. We've done some research. It takes a very long time to process applications. When it comes to local employment, it takes several months. Someone from the catering industry told me that when they make an application for 20 imported waiters, from the start to the end, it takes more than 6 months. It fails to address the manpower shortage issue. The government can make use of electronic services to improve efficiencies. They should engage stakeholders locally and outside to streamline the process. It is a very good time to take stock of the implementation of the schemes. As I said, I agree with the general direction in the original motion. I support it. I've spent some time to study Dr. NGAN's amendment. The overall direction is in order. I support it. Mr. SHIU has mentioned this as well. Dr. NGAN has deleted the part in relation to median wage. I do understand that the motion has to strike a balance. But we do need to reduce operation cost. The schemes have to be effective and able to meet the objective. The original motion suggests a study, not asking to delete it, to remove it. A study is healthy, so I support the original motion but not the amendment. Thank you. Mr. Martin Liu.
主席，
We have manpower shortage. That didn't pop up yesterday. We have general importation labor policy. Importation of people, not just labor. There should be studies and surveys done by sectors to come up with an accurate projection. This will be the basis for future policies. According to the latest manpower projection, by 2028 there will be 180,000 vacancies. When it comes to construction, accommodation and food, retail, there is a large number of vacancies. Whether it's high skill posts and low skill posts, we see manpower shortage. We already feel the adverse impact of a manpower shortage. Quality of service vary. It affects tourist experience. There are a large number of public works in the pipeline. The shortage will cause delay. If the situation persists, businesses will find it difficult to operate. They may close, which creates unemployment. There will be economic problems. The cost will be paid by everyone. In 2023, the government launched the Enhanced Supplementary Labor Scheme covering 26 job categories generally excluded from the Supplementary Labor Scheme. It will last for 2 years. I hope that when priority is given to local workers, the enhanced scheme should be extended. More flexibility should be built into it. According to a electrical survey, we found that Singapore has set a ratio of local labor and imported labor. There will be different arrangements for different sectors. Say in construction and processing, the ratio of imported workers can be as high as 83.3%. The government should review the number of quotas of the different sectors and consider relaxing the quota. The manpower projection report fully shows that there is a serious problem of manpower shortage. The current scheme requires employees to have a 4-week recruitment locally, which does not meet the needs of the businesses. In Singapore, there is a requirement that they will have to first conduct a local recruitment exercise. The government can study to see if it can be relaxed so that in Hong Kong, businesses can have more flexibilities to recruit. It's also shown in the manpower projection report that there is a serious shortage of skilled workers by 2028. Non-degree technical skilled labor should be imported into Hong Kong. There can be a list compiled. We can also attract students to come to Hong Kong to study in VPET courses, to encourage them to stay in Hong Kong to find jobs. Mutual recognition of qualifications with a GBA should be enhanced as well. Importation of labor is to address the urgent issue of manpower shortage to keep us competitive. But when it comes to the use of AI, innovative technology, we can't avoid the impact the application has brought. Enterprises can be encouraged to make use of technology to reduce reliance on manpower. At the same time, training should be enhanced to raise the competitiveness and skills of laborers. I support the original motion. Thank you.
Mr. Kenneth Lan. Thank you, Deputy President. One of the major challenges that we face is declining fertility rate, aging population, manpower shortage. Our labor participation rate has been dropping over the years from 2019, 58.6 to 2024, 56%. In Hong Kong, we have a shortage of 50,000. In 2028, we will see a shortage of 180,000. So it is unavoidable that we import labor to fill the gap. I thank Mr. SHIU Ka-fai for moving the motion so that we can talk about this issue. Manpower is an important resource for economic development. The government has been implementing labor importation schemes for unskilled or low-skilled workers. About 3,000 workers come to Hong Kong every year to work in the residential care home, construction, and fisheries industries. Many industries face manpower shortage for a prolonged period of time. The vacancy rate of aviation industry is 13.3%. The service quality is affected as a result. So in 2023, the government introduced the enhanced supplementary labor scheme to cover 26 job categories and implement a sector-specific scheme for residential care home, construction, aviation, and other industry. At the same time, we see a negative impact. Employers have to incur higher costs. Local workers are worried about their jobs, and there are problems with abuse or exploitation of imported workers. Deputy President, the reason why we import workers is because we don't have enough manpower. But I've talked to the youth groups of various trade unions. Many youth or young entrepreneurs told us that the importation scheme doesn't really help them because the cost of importation is rather high. There's requirement on medium wage, there's agency fees, and the employers have to arrange accommodations for imported workers. There are a lot of things to process. So I think that the government should make reference to the practice of Macau and Singapore. Macau offer a more flexible arrangement for accommodation. Singapore requirements on imported workers' wages is also more flexible than ours. With the increased in education level, it's more difficult for us to hire local workers. As I mentioned, take the residential care homes as an example. The government a few years ago launched the navigation scheme for residential care homes, but the wastage rate of the scheme amount to 45%. Only 30% of the graduates of the navigation scheme joined the relevant sectors. So I think that we should import workers to fill the gap, while local workers can fill positions of skilled workers. Apart from using high salary to attract talents, we should also train local workers on technology so that young people see a future in construction sector. So I think that both local workers and imported workers can coexist and they can complement each other. Lastly, I think that the government's gatekeeping role is very important. Apart from the quota system and the ratio of local to imported workers, I think that the government should look at a macro perspective to assess the manpower demand of different industries. For catering, retail, or service industries, we can attract elderly, ethnic minorities, housewives to join them. I think that there should be a specific scheme to enhance labor participation rate for different groups of people in Hong Kong. The government charged a employees retraining levy of $400 per month from employers. So I think that we should review such a levy so that we can spend resources to retrain local workforce for the benefit of the whole society. I so submit. Thank you. Mr. Stanley Lee. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank Mr. SHIU Ka-fai for moving today's motion so that we can discuss the relevant measures. Apart from the median wage requirement, I think that we should also look into other areas of the enhanced scheme. The Labor and Welfare Bureau on the 19th of June introduced a sector-specific scheme for residential care homes. I am concerned about the difficulty of operation for residential care homes, so I will focus on this area. Over the past, the manpower shortage issue in the residential care homes industry has been very serious. The level of quality of care for patients in care homes has been on decline as a result. By importing workers, we can enhance the service quality, so I support all the schemes. But the efficiency of processing of application has room for improvement. I know that the Secretary is working on it, but I hope that the Bureau will continue to step up their efforts in this area. I'm a part of the Hong Kong Residential Care Home Alliance, and I've collected views from the members. First, on the application process, the trade told me that the time taken for processing application is too long and the entire procedures is too complicated. It usually takes 2 months for the government to improve the application. So I think that the government should streamline the application form and offer pre-approval service. Second, for emergency demand, I hope that there will be a fast track for certain care homes to shorten the approval time to within 1 month. Third, there is uneven quotas for each round of the scheme. Some residential care homes were unable to fill their vacancies because they lose out on, say, 1 round of the scheme. So I wonder if the government could adopt a dynamic approach in assigning quotas. Also, we have to adjust the application period. The current fixed application period cannot meet the unexpected vaccination of care workers or health workers. So I hope that the government will open the application 365 days a year. Also, the quality of care workers and health workers is on the decline. Some imported workers don't really understand the workflow of care homes in Hong Kong, and they sometimes cannot adapt to the culture here. So I hope that the government will work with the local authorities in the Greater Bay Area by providing targeted training for mainland care workers. I think also the Labor Department can issue guidelines to mainland training organizations so that they can offer suitable training to mainland workers. Also, I think that we should implement an apprentice scheme. For unlicensed operation, I think that the Labor Department should establish a dedicated team to combat illegal acts of employment agencies. We have to import the manpower to solve the local shortage issue. The government can establish an interdepartmental or bureau working group and promulgate the usage rate of the vacancy so that the trade can formulate their own strategies. Also, the government can step up training for local workers to extend the navigation scheme to middle-aged people. The government should also promote silver economy. Many elderly have abundant experience. I think that the government can hire them as tutors or mentors. I think that we should protect the interest of the local workers. So I can only support Dr. Ngaman Yu's amendment. Thank you. Mr. Tony Chan. Deputy President, many people are concerned about the high cost of construction in Hong Kong. due to various reasons. One of the reasons for the high cost is cost of manpower. Given the aging population, many sectors are faced with a shortage of manpower and aging of their laborers. Construction sector is also faced with such an issue, and it results in the reduction of productivity. Coupled with other reasons, the time taken for construction is long, and in turn, it drives up the construction cost. The construction sector said that some workers are faced with unemployment because of the current property market. As a result, the number of private works projects is on the drop, and there is also a mismatch in terms of skills. Some construction workers are only familiar with 1 to 2 process, and they are therefore heavily impacted by change in the industry or policy. For skilled workers or grassroots workers, I support according priority to local workers. We should help unskilled or low-skilled workers upgrade and transform. We should also make use of innovative technology to alleviate the manpower demand and enhance productivity. We should also attract new blood to the trade. So the Construction Industry Council and the government have done much in this regard, but it is projected that there is still a manpower shortage in the construction industry amounting to 20,000 to 40,000 positions. It is therefore still necessary for us to import workers. In 2023, the government rolled out the sector-specific labor importation scheme for construction sector. The quotas is 12,000. Since the implementation of the scheme, we have launched 7 rounds of recruitment. We have approved 10,600 quotas. The reaction or outcome is worse than what I had expected. Many companies said that the application process is too complicated and there are too many requirements. Say, for example, for one imported workers hire, the company have to hire no less than 2 local workers. Also, the company have to offer training quotas for local workers. There is also the medium wage requirement. The company should also pay employment agencies fees, offer accommodation. That's why the number of applications for the importation scheme is far lower than expected. So, the original motion asked the government to review the median wage requirement to more flexibly to handle the accommodation requirements for imported workers more flexibly. I support all of these suggestions. I'm not saying that we should cancel all these requirements, but we have to make sure that the schemes can achieve its intended result. While we protect local workers, we have to make sure that we have enough driving force for economic development. Property management sector is also faced with a manpower shortage issue. Property management sector is less affected by the economic conditions. As a result, the manpower demand continue to go up. However, it's difficult for the trade to increase the management fees, and therefore they cannot hire enough people with higher salary. Not many young people are willing to join the trade, so you can see that a lot of security guards and cleaners are of old age. The enhanced supplementary labor scheme allows property management sector to import workers, but the number of applications is not high. One of the reasons is that the government contractors are not allowed to hire imported workers. The government only allow a public works project to hire imported workers. However, the two arrangements are conflicting. I so submit.
Mr. Scott Leung. Thank you, Deputy President. We have an aging population and a shortage of laborers in Hong Kong. So in 2023, the sector-specific labor importation schemes and the enhanced supplementary labor scheme were introduced. suspending the general exclusion of the 26 job categories, and there were also the labor importation scheme for the construction sector and the transport sector. Over 70,000 laborers were imported to address the pressing needs of the workforce in Hong Kong. These schemes have been implemented for about 2 years or so. The government should take stock of these schemes and review the results. The government should also safeguard employment priority for local workers. Under the existing arrangements, the wages of imported workers must not be lower than the median monthly wages. This is a very important safeguard. In the original motion, it mentions drawing reference from the foreign domestic helper system in order to remove barriers. I don't agree on this. The work nature of imported workers is different from that of foreign domestic helpers, FDH. FDH do not constitute direct competition with the local workforce. Accommodation is provided by the employers of FDH, so we shouldn't draw a direct comparison. What is more important is that we can prevent enterprises from importing workers at a low rate, and this will potentially cause a huge impact to the local workforce. Local workers will be forced to accept lower wages, resulting in different wages for the same positions. This will also affect the wage level of local workers, especially for low-skilled workers, and this will affect the local labor market. According to the CNSD, the unemployment rate is 3.2% in Hong Kong. There's a slight increase, so we have to review the system of importing workers. Say the F&B industry accounted for the most number of positions at 20,000, cook 10,000, and for waitress, waiters, and so on, they account for different figures standing at 8,500 or so. Some restaurants dismiss local workers and employ imported workers who then replace local workers. This has exerted a profound impact on the local labor market. These sectors have a shortage of manpower, but we need to ensure that the importation of workers is last resort instead of the first priority solution. Therefore, the administration needs to have a strengthened mechanism, say imposing a quota system for the 26 job categories. The government needs to review the recruitment exercise and procedures of enterprises. We need to make sure they really have genuine recruitment difficulties before they can import workers. Enterprises should also be prevented from dismissing local workers and apply for the importation of workers. On the relaxation of accommodation arrangements, I believe some imported workers will be forced to accept undesirable living environment. So before we relax any requirements, we need to have a statutory regime to protect the interests and rights of imported workers. The labor market is facing a serious challenge, but we need to strike a balance between importing workers and safeguarding employment priority for local workers. I hope that the administration will review the arrangements and enhance it. The administration should also adopt a multi-pronged approach to train local workers and retrain workers. We need to upskill local workers in order to prevent any rise in the unemployment rate. We also need to provide more attractive remuneration packages and improve the working environment of local workers. We need to unleash the workforce of retirees, for instance. I speak in support of Dr. NGAN's amendment and against Mr. Peter Shiu's original motion. Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Deputy President. I thank Mr. Peter Shiu for moving this motion so that we can discuss this issue. We lack natural resources, and I think manpower is very important. Some elderly people retire at a later age, but then we still face a manpower shortage. Between 1971 and 1996, there was an increase of 2.4 million of the working population in Hong Kong. This shows that the population didn't. Well, according to the manpower projection, the manpower shortage problem will only worsen. And there will be a shortage of 180,000 of manpower shortage in 2028, and we cannot solve the problem overnight with measures. The administration launched a scheme to increase quotas in UGC-funded universities, but solely relying on training cannot help us meet the needs. A centers out of the A centers have manpower shortage problems, say shipping, aviation, trade, logistics, and so on. There are many development projects, including those in the Northern Metropolis. If there is a lack of manpower, this will retard the long-term development of Hong Kong. So we need to enhance our efforts to attract more talents to come to Hong Kong. We are developing emerging markets, say for the cities or the countries along the Belt and Road Initiative, especially those in ASEAN countries. We need to attract more talents, and we can attract more business opportunities. We can also forge better relationships. We need to review the effectiveness of the labor importation scheme. In 2016, the Belt and Road Scholarship was set up. We attracted more talents to come to Hong Kong to study, but then only 473 students have been attracted to Hong Kong. The government needs to review the effectiveness of the scholarship. We need to attract more outstanding students to come to Hong Kong. Apart from doing so, we also need to attract high-caliber talents to come to Hong Kong. We all want to compete for high-caliber talents, and these talents are highly mobile. They don't necessarily stay in one single place. We need to understand their needs and attract them to stay in Hong Kong. I hope that we can discuss with the GBA to attract talents from GBA to Hong Kong. We need to streamline the immigration clearance procedures in these three places. So people of different nationalities can also live and work in the GBA. We need to take a dual-track approach in the face of an aging population and a manpower shortage in Hong Kong. We need to put in place a short work visa mechanism. This can ensure a stable increase in the working population and will also allow us to plug the manpower gap in different sectors. We need sufficient manpower. In 2050, if we can achieve the population of 10 million, this is only how we can address the problem of an aging population and a lack of manpower. That is exactly how we can maintain our competitiveness. Thank you. I so submit. Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you, Deputy President. In recent years, many sectors in Hong Kong have a manpower shortage. In 2023, the government launched the labor importation scheme and the enhanced supplementary labor scheme. Since the launch of these schemes, the industries agree that they are helpful in resolving the manpower shortage problem. Over 71,000 people have been imported into Hong Kong under these two schemes. The importation of workers may give rise to competition with local workers, but then employers have been enhancing the remuneration packages. The median wage increased by 3.5% last year, according to the manpower projections in 2023, up to, by 2028, there will be a shortage of 180,000 manpower shortage. In the F&B sector, retail sector, construction sector, there will be over 5,000 shortfall of manpower in each of these sectors. In order to safeguard employment priority for local workers, under these two schemes, there are employment restrictions and requirements. They say the ratio is usually 1:2. And the wages of imported workers must not be lower than the median monthly wages of relevant positions in Hong Kong. The unemployment rate in Hong Kong stands at about 3.2%, comparing with September 2023 when the schemes were launched. The figure was 2.9%. We haven't yet seen a remarkable improvement. The ESLS will expire or will end in September this year. After 2 years of implementation, we do need to enhance the policy in order for it to be effective. Some employers said that employers will have to conduct a 4-week local recruitment exercise and accord priority to employing suitable local workers to fill the vacancies. When all these fail, it is only then employers can employ imported workers. I suggest that the administration fine-tune the requirements to give employers more flexibility. In the original motion, the wages of imported workers are said to be not lower than the median monthly wages of relevant positions in Hong Kong. But then in the amendment of Dr. Frank NGAN, the relevant part is deleted, and I have reservation about it. Apart from wages, employers also need to bear the retraining levy, accommodation cost, intermediary cost, as well as all kinds of insurance premiums, as well as transportation allowances. This will increase the cost of importing workers, much higher than that of employing local workers. In Singapore, there is no such requirement. Employers and employees will decide on the wages having regard to the market situation. We need to adopt a more flexible approach in determining the wages of imported workers. This will help increase the operating efficiency of companies in Hong Kong. There are seasonal manpower shortage issues. The administration may consider making adjustments to the labor importation scheme for offices outside Hong Kong. They can import workers to come to Hong Kong to work to ease the manpower shortage in Hong Kong. We need to prevent any impact on the local labor market. Overall, the administration needs to monitor the local labor market situation and review the demand and supply of labor force. The ESLS may be regularized and the implementation details should be improved to enhance the long-term competitiveness of companies in Hong Kong. I so submit. Thank you.
Mr. Yu Pak Leung. Thank you, Madam Deputy. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. SHIU for moving this motion that is of concern to the sectors. Well, this is in relation to whether to expand or extend the enhanced supplementary labor scheme. The economy is reviving. Number of sectors in the tourism industry, say for example, travel agencies, coaches, they are reviving. The businesses are reviving too, but we have a manpower shortage. How do we enhance our capacity of hospitality. In 2023, the sector-specific labor importation scheme was launched. Transportation is one of the sectors. The enhanced supplementary labor scheme was also launched in 2023 to cover 26 job categories. Our tourist sector is not included, but still we hope that these schemes will help us. The schemes have been in place for a year and a half. They are not well received by our sector. We think that there is a lot of room for improvement. I understand that the Labor Department has done a lot of work to streamline the process. The application is complicated, processing time is long. Well, referring to a successful case of importation of a coach driver, it takes half a year. For the hotel industry, from application to the person arriving, it is taken 9 months. I understand that there is room for enhancement as well as compression. The imported workers are new to the industry, but they have to be paid above the median wage. The standard contract is rigid. As you know that, well, in our industry, when you work overtime, you get time off. But under the contract, you have to be paid. So it means that imported workers receive a higher salary than a local worker if you take into account accommodation subsidy as well. This creates conflicts. Our industry said that imported labor will carry a cost higher by 40 to 50% than recruiting locally. There's a high cost, low flexibility. You have to resolve issues such as human resource management as well as accommodation. So it's something that is of little use but necessary. The effectiveness is limited. We have an aging population. What do we need most in Hong Kong? For certain jobs, you don't need high qualification, but you do need physical sturdiness. You also would like to get someone who are willing to work long term. We do need importation of labor in this regard. We want to find a solution to address manpower shortage problems. So in catering industry, in hotel industry, we have the same problem. We need to find a solution very quickly. I agree with Mr. SHIU's original motion. The scheme should be extended. The requirement of median wage should be reviewed. Perhaps use the starting salary as a starting point. The standard contract requirements should be relaxed so that enterprises will have more flexibility to deploy. 9,600 levy should be adjusted as well. I thank members for supporting our call to include the tourism sector into the schemes. So you need to give me 2 things, Secretary. In relation to the graduate scheme that allows them to stay in Hong Kong, you have not covered our trade. Please give me a direct answer, a good one. Also, please include the tourism industry in the sector-specific scheme. This will enhance the manpower use of our sector. Thank you. Ms. Lillian Kwok. I thank Mr. Peter SHIU for moving the motion on enhancing measures on importation of manpower. I also support the 2 amendments. When it comes to enhancement measures, we need to make sure that quality and quantity are ensured. There are importation of labor in other places, and there are requirements. Say in Australia, Well, an assessment of qualifications will have to be done. If you're an engineer, you have to meet certain qualifications. You will have to get a vouch from your employer. In 2022, there is a scheme for nursing sector. 94% of the imported labor are there to fill vacancies in rural areas. Now the government advocates mutual recognition of qualifications with the GPA. I think that there should be a requirement of certain certificates. They need to pass Hong Kong examinations if they come from GPA. There can be training courses or bridging courses so that we can be a base to train manpower. We can work with other places to train professionals and technical talents to meet the need for new quality productive forces development. We need to make it easy for people to cross the boundary to work in another place. We see that we need to ensure that there is a fair treatment for imported labor. There are cases when imported labor is exploited. It tarnishes our image. I suggest that there can be a reporting system, there can be a checking system to ensure that they will not be exploited or defrauded. We need to create a favorable environment for import laborers to make this sector thrive. We have a manpower shortage. We need to start with local VPET training. The objective of importation of labor is to ensure economic development. At the same time, you have to ensure that local labor will have their skills enhanced. The government has launched a number of programs, training programs as well. The Education Bureau has also done some work in this area. There is the Alliance of Applied Science Universities, as well as other measures. This increases the quality of our manpower. But we need to make sure that the capabilities of laborers meet the needs of our economic development. There can be measures to encourage cooperation between the sector and training institutes. In areas where there is a manpower shortage, training should be enhanced. At the same time, application of AI should be boosted as well. All these will meet our future needs. We can do something in secondary school as well. We can help students to make better life planning. There can be certificate courses or micro-certificate courses for secondary students. We need to ensure that there are multiple pathways for youngsters to boost their ability to have a career in the labor market. We need to have a targeted measure. While we make use of imported labor, we also need to use local talents as a core. This is the way to have sustainable development. This will enable us to transform and upgrade. We also need to combine it with new elements such as AI. This will boost our competitiveness. I so submit. Mr. Yim Kong. Mr. Yim Kong? Thank you. Mr. Peter SHIU has moved a motion. This is an important issue for our sustainable development. According to a certain survey, Hong Kong's cost is the highest in the world. We have a manpower shortage. We have an aging population. We need to consider where our competitiveness lies. Compared to Japan, that has the highest cost. Currently, in Japan, a lot of the prices are lower than those in Hong Kong. Manufacturing cost in Hong Kong is 10 times higher than that in Japan. Well, there is a elevated walkway in Yuen Long. The project cost is over $1.7 billion. In mainland, it will only cost about $1 billion. High cost drags down development. This will also deplete Hong Kong's public coffer. We have a manpower shortage. There is bottleneck in importation of manpower. That is the cost of low efficiency and high cost. Let's compare ourselves with other cities. Say Nansha, Greater Bay Area. The companies put in place about $7 billion. There are many venues at the location. They have a seating of 100,000. There is in Kai Tak Sports Park. The project cost is $30 billion. There is a huge difference, as you can see. We are promoting A centers and the Northern Metropolis. There will be a lot of public works. While priority is given to local workers, we need to address the manpower shortage and the need for imported labor. We need to put in place efficient policies to address this problem. We need to enhance the cost effectiveness of projects. I have some suggestions. We need to expedite the development of Northern Metropolis. The ratio of imported labor should be increased. Well, when a site is far away from residential areas, the working hours can be lengthened. There can be shift work hours. This will make better use of manpower and expedite the works. Currently, there is a requirement of offering a wage over the median wage. This is to protect the rights of local labor. However, it has created limitations in flexibility. In Singapore and Macau, they have imported labor. Imported labor accounts for 30 to 40% of the population. However, there is a great flexibility. In Singapore, there is no direct comparison. When it comes to technical manpower, they offer a wage of 1/3 of local labor. In Hong Kong, you have to pay $400 for retraining levies. You have to pay for accommodation and other levies as well. When it comes to retail, catering, and tourism, I don't think there is assistance provided, not enough. The limitation of median wage should be changed to an imported labor tax. This will ensure that importation of labor will not drag down the wage level of local workers. At the same time, the government can generate revenue. Dr. NGAN deletes the reference of the review in the original motion. I think that is a very important element. Policies should be improved. The government should choose the one that is a lesser evil. We need to put in place proper policies to provide support. I support Mr. SHIU's motion. Thank you.
唔該，主席。
Ms. Jovi Chan. Thank you, President. I speak against Mr. SHIU Ka-fai's original motion and all the amendments. The original motion talks about enhancing the measures on the importation of manpower. If we read the motion carefully, it implies that the member wants the government to import manpower indefinitely. Construction sector, residential care home sector have been approved 24,000 quotas for importation of workers. Also, the government introduced the enhanced supplementary labor scheme in 2023. In 1 year and a half, 15,000 quotas have been introduced, covering 26 jobs categories that are not covered, including security guards, cleaners, waitresses, waiters, and so on. The FTU has all along said that the enhanced scheme undermines the interest of the local workers. The general public fail to see the benefits of this so-called enhanced supplementary labor scheme. 51,000 imported workers have been introduced under the enhanced scheme. There are 20,000 for the catering industry. You can ask around, do people think that this service quality offered by restaurants is higher? Is the cheaper? We only see the impact caused by the enhanced scheme. The unemployment rate of catering industries has increased from 4.4% in September last year to 5% last month. Some full-time employers become part-timers. Some local companies import workers in order to exhaust the 2-to-1 ratio. For those who are able to be retained, their wage is low. The median wage for catering industry has remained at $16,000 per month, although the consumer price has been going up. So I will not support the motion of Mr. SHIU that we should review the median wage requirement. With the reduction of a wage for local workers, it will only harm our economy. As we all know, imported workers transmit their wages to their home country. There's the figures that talk about the Philippines. The Philippines is the 4th largest receiving country of foreign exchange. They receive over $37 billion in US dollars that account for 8.5% of their GDP. It contributes to the Philippines' local consumption and accounts for 70% of their productivity. In order to drive our economy, we must not over-rely on importation of manpower. Although Dr. Ngaman Yu's amendment is against the original motion, however, they still support the expansion of the importation scheme, so the FTU cannot support it. When we talk about importation scheme, many members quote the Singaporean example. However, their situation is very different. The women participation rate is much higher than ours by over 10%. Their female participation rate in workforce is 60%. According to our statistics, our female participation rate in workforce is only 52.2%, a drop of 7% compared to a year before. So why are Singaporean women working in their country? In 2024, they legislate for flexible working hours. Our secretariat has conducted a study and a report has been published. They talk about how Singapore support women labor participation. I think that we should make reference to their practice. In Singapore, over the past 30 years, the female labor participation rate has increased by 20%. This is something that we should learn from so that we can accord priority to local workers. This should not only be our slogan. I so submit, Mr. Lee Chung-hong. President, I don't agree with Mr. SHIU's original motion, but I thank him for moving the motion so that we can discuss the problems brought about by the importation of manpower. We need to plug the loopholes and prioritize employment for local workers. The enhanced supplementary labor scheme is not a labor replacement scheme or a cheap labor scheme. Since the introduction of the enhanced scheme in 2023, 26 jobs categories have been included. Coupled with the sector-specific importation scheme, 57,000 imported workers have come to Hong Kong. This has dealt a blow to local workforce. Catering, retail industries, the unemployment rate in these trade has risen to 5% and 3.9% respectively. When we go into the districts, we've received complaints seeing that those with low education backgrounds are being dismissed and they sometimes are forced to work at part-time. So it seems that the labor importation scheme has departed from the government's principle of prioritizing local workers. Some employers ask the employees to sign 2 contracts. They confiscate their ATM cards. Imported workers, therefore, become cheap labor. Therefore, some employers try to import workers in order to save money. Only a small number of imported workers complain about their exploitation. That's because the cost of complaint is high, and as soon as they make a complaint, they will lose their jobs. So I think that there should be a mechanism for the labor service enterprises to arrange a new job for laborers or workers who complain about their employers to ensure their security of jobs. The ratio of local workers to imported workers should be 2-1, but this ratio has not been properly implemented. Some employers dismiss local workers or ask them to change to part-timers after importing workers, and they eventually dismiss the local workers as a result. So sometimes we see that there are more imported workers than local workers in some companies. The administration said that they do not allow such things to happen. However, the Labor Department rarely monitor the manpower situation in companies that import workers. Under the enhanced scheme, the employers must conduct a 4-week local recruitment exercise. But are these employers genuinely trying to hire local workers? That's questionable. Some job seekers said that their applications were being rejected by the employers that are trying to recruit people. The median wage for cleaners is $10,660 per month. That's 20 to 30% lower than the outsourced cleaners of government. Without the monitoring of the trade or the government, the enhanced scheme has become an obstacle for a wage increase for local workers. Even though local workers may be able to secure their job, their wage will not go up because of the imported workers. The median wage of the hotel industry, say for example, remain at $16,000 per month. The requirement of median wage is to protect local employment. Hong Kong is very much different from Singapore. We don't have a arbitration mechanism. We don't have that many different types of jobs. If we cancel the median wage requirement, the grassroots employees' wage level will drop significantly, and this is not conducive to the local economic and social development. That's why we don't support the original motion. I thank Dr. NGAN for moving the motion or moving the amendment to cancel the median wage requirement. However, that does not change the nature of the original motion, so we will not support the amendment either. In order for us to maintain our competitiveness, we must develop high-quality productive forces and go for high-quality development instead of going for cheap labor. I so submit. Mr. Ka-fai. Thank you, President. As a representative of the trade sector, I object to Mr. SHIU Ka-fai's original motion and all of the amendments. People sitting next to the television are wondering why we don't move amendment. The reason is very simple. Mr. SHIU Ka-fai's original motion is to ask for cheap imported labor. There's no way for us to change the meaning or the implications of the title of the motion. I think that we should not ignore the impact caused to local workers because of the enhanced scheme. Some scholars said that when we have imported workers, local workers may be replaced. Mr. SHIU Ka-fai, in his second point, said that we should review the requirement of a median wage, and they used the example of foreign domestic helpers. Well, here I'd like to thank the foreign domestic helpers' contribution to Hong Kong. I have not hired one. But I think that Mr. SHIU quoted a wrong example because we don't import foreign domestic helpers because they offer a cheap salary. The reason why we import foreign domestic helpers is to unleash potential workforce. If we raise their salary, then that will undermine our total labor participation rate. By importing workers, it will make it more difficult for local job seekers to secure a job. The government said that we import labor to fill the vacancies, but the nature of this scheme has changed. In 2023, without consultation, the government suspended the general exclusion of the 26 job categories. 50,000 imported workers have come because of the enhanced scheme. However, the unemployment rate went up. Catering industry, the unemployment rate has gone from 4.4% to 5%. Retail industry, 3.5% to 3.9%. The figures tell us the truth, which is that the imported workers has not driven our economy, but replaced our local workers. And this is the result of lack of monitoring. The enterprises organize bogus recruitment exercise. Supplementary labor importation scheme has become a scheme to replace local workers. Mr. SHIU said that the median wage requirement may be a burden to employers, but it will prohibit employers from relying on imported workers. This is our last line of defense. The government has been working on promoting silver employment. If we do away with the median wage requirement, then all these efforts will become futile. Third, short-sighted policy will imply long-term consequences. For places like Macau, they over-rely on imported workers. And as a result, many people leave the city. Many young people in Macau don't want to join certain industries because they are filled with imported workers. They can only work in casinos. They have no other way out. This is what's happening in Macau. When imported workers come, they use our medical service, they use our public housing, and taxpayers have to foot the bill. We must maintain the median wage requirement. Second, we must have a ceiling for the number of imported workers. Third, we must mandate enterprises train local workers. Fourth, we must combat bogus recruitment by introducing a third-party monitoring and supervision. President, if we relax our supplementary labor scheme too much, then our local workers will become second-tier labor. Please stop speaking. Thank you.
Mr. Tommy Zhang. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. Peter SHIU's original motion. I need to emphasize that We want the administration to address the problem squarely. There is manpower shortage across all sectors. This is an indisputable fact. We need to import workers from outside Hong Kong in order to ease the manpower shortage. We need to plug the manpower gap in order to support economic development in Hong Kong. The ESLS was implemented in September 2023. It allowed 26 job categories to import workers. A total of 51,000 quotas have been approved. 21,000 workers have been imported. They worked in the catering sector, including 8,500 waiters and waitresses and 10,000 cooks. We need manpower. We need a lot of manpower. I thank the administration for helping us to address the problem. It's been a year and a half, and we do need to enhance the scheme. I think we need to review the arrangement or the requirement that the wages of imported workers must not be lower than the median monthly wages of relevant positions in Hong Kong in order to enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness. Many sectors are paying employees at a rate below the median monthly wages or lower than the 9,600 employee retraining levy. This has minimized the effectiveness of the ESLS. I represent the catering sector. The application takes a long time to be approved. The median wage has increased, affecting operating costs. When the median wage keeps increasing, the wages of imported workers will be higher than local workers. There will be different wages for the same positions. This will also affect the morale of all the workers. The existing requirements are that employees have to work in the same place, have to live in the same place as they work. I believe we can allow imported workers to choose to live in the accommodation provided by their relatives and friends in Hong Kong. Then employers won't find it difficult to look for accommodation for employees, and employees will also, imported workers will also have support when to live with their relatives and friends in Hong Kong. The recruitment costs are rising, and this will be passed on to the consumers. All citizens in Hong Kong will have to bear this burden. The ESLS is aimed at supporting the local economic development and enhancing our competitiveness. Just now I heard from a number of legislators, Mr. Scott Leung, Mr. Chun-keung, and other members representing trade unions. They said that Mr. Peter SHIU supported the median wage policy, so why are we now against this one? Well, this is because we can identify the weakness in this policy. People say that we fire employees because we have imported workers. Some say well, actually nowadays there are no jobs in the catering sector without workers. Thank you, President. Ms. Eunice Yong. Thank you, President. we have a serious manpower shortage problem. We also have an aging population and a decreasing labor participation rate. We need to help local laborers to upskill. We shouldn't waste any more time. The current ratio is a 1 to 2. With the widening gap of manpower shortage, this will affect the flexibility of using manpower in companies. So I do think this ratio should be relaxed to allow companies to import more workers. Take the catering industry as an example. In peak season or at festivals, there is oftentimes a shortage of manpower. If we can import workers, we will replenish the local labor force to ensure there will be sufficient waiters and waitresses. The sector-specific labor importation schemes should also be more flexible so the resources can be used more flexibly. For example, in some situations when there is a manpower crunch, the quotas in the subsequent months can be used first. Then they can meet the imminent needs. The sector-specific labor importation schemes should also be extended to other sectors, say the manufacturing industry. I believe this measure can be adjusted in order that some industries can replenish their workforce when they have a manpower shortage. The success rate is on the low side. I hope that the Labor Department can take stock of the experience of the scheme and discuss it with employers so that the efficiency of application can be enhanced. So can the success rate. Companies should also be allowed to plan their manpower more easily. Regarding the provision of accommodation, employers always have to pay more. If we can increase the set-off amount, then we can ease the burden of employers, or we can enable employers to provide allowances instead of providing accommodations. This will lower the financial risks of employers, and this will also enhance the flexibility for employees to look for accommodation in Hong Kong. Regarding the median wage, I hope that the administration will review the hard and fast requirement in relation to median wage in the ESLS. Companies should be given more leeway in this regard so that they will enhance their competitiveness in the market. And I'm going to share some cases with you. Over 120,000 of families, the parents not in Hong Kong, and 97% of the respondents said that they want to stay in Hong Kong with a work visa. So I hope that the administration will review the arrangements to allow the parents of children whose parents are not in Hong Kong to work in Hong Kong. This will reduce the welfare expenditure of the government, and this will also inject impetus to the labor market in Hong Kong. Then we can ease the manpower shortage problem in Hong Kong so that we will have a win-win situation. Thank you. Mr. Kingsley Wong. Thank you, President. On behalf of the FTU, I will give my views. The labor market is a cornerstone of Hong Kong. As the chief executive said, we attach a lot of importance to labor force in Hong Kong. Employment is an important area of livelihood. Having sufficient manpower will enhance the sense of gain and well-being of Hong Kong people. We shouldn't pursue development at the expense of the laborers' welfare. Over 75,000 laborers have been imported in 1 year and a half. The construction sector, the catering industry, they have been facing challenges. In the past few months, we have received complaints from the catering industry and the construction industry. They said that the importation of manpower has affected them. Their income has decreased. 9 food chains were allowed to import 50 imported workers. Just one single application that has been approved already took away a lot of jobs of local workers. The median wages for cleaners are $10,660, 20% lower than the subcontracted cleaners or workers at the FEHD. Just last week, I held a press conference with the industry. A lady construction worker complained that she could only work for 4 days since Chinese New Year. Local workers have become replacement workers for imported workers. Under the ESLS, a total of 13,000 cooks and 8,100 waiters and waitresses have been imported, accounting for some 10% of the entire industry. The unemployment rate rose from 4.4% to 5%. Many people say that in Singapore, a lot of imported workers were seen, so they have better development than Hong Kong. But they didn't know that the labor participation rate is as high as 68.2%, 13.6% higher than the rate seen in Hong Kong, that is 54.6%. They have an aging population, but then GDP growth 24% in Hong Kong, for Singapore 50%. The actual growth some $21,000 for Hong Kong. If we cannot achieve full employment to improve the livelihood of Hong Kong and allow members of the public to share the fruits, how can we model on the mode of importation of workers? There will be growing dissatisfaction in society. I hope that the administration will review the labor importation schemes. We should decrease the quotas for some sectors. Laborers always don't have the advantage. The whole society should work together to help laborers. I hope companies will shoulder a greater sense of responsibility to identify potential laborers so that we can grow the pie larger. I also submit. Thank you.
Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Peter SHIU for moving this motion. Outside the Council, I talked to Mr. Peter SHIU, about labor issues. You know that we share more or less the same view. You said at the outset that you don't agree with Dr. NGAN's amendment. Well, our starting point may be the same, but if we support your motion, some people may misunderstand that we advocate doing away with the median wage. But we have to discuss thoroughly about the use of median wage, what it is, how it's calculated, because it is calculated every so often. I have friends working in warehouses and construction sites. If you import a labor from mainland China, say median wage if you have 2 years experience, one for 4 years experience, but if it's someone inexperienced and you give them the wage, then there will be a problem. Well, you may want to increase the remuneration of local workers, but then a higher basis is used to calculate a future median wage. As a result, imported labor will have a higher wage as part of the deal. I think that importation of manpower gives lots of people a chance to put their finger in the pie, to take bribes. Say if you can hire someone from the mainland for $10,000, they earn $8,000 on the mainland. Well, everyone has a price. If you offer $15,000, then they will come to Hong Kong. But because of the requirement, you offer $30,000. That gives room for agencies to offer, say, $18,000 to the laborer and pocket the $12,000. In future discussion about median wage, you need to understand and think about whether employers should provide accommodation and count it and add it to their wage. We have to sort out the logic first. Do you, on a rigid basis, require to employ one local worker for every imported laborer? For our pig farmers, they have to provide a higher wage. But if there are imported laborers working alongside local laborers on the same job, well, some employers are mean. They will say, look at the imported worker. He's working much harder. I think he's just trying to rile the local worker up to create problems. So for workers, imported ones should be posted at different tasks, at different posts. Say, for example, bricklayers. If you hire imported laborers to be bricklayers, then you hire a local worker not to be bricklayers, but to supervise, check qualities. You make the post of a local worker more technical or specialized to make a difference. You need to find a way to make it work. You need to make Hong Kong people think that they will make more with imported labor. Well, if there is a difference of 10,000, is to be paid by the employer. But does it mean you have to offer 30,000 for the imported worker? You offer a market rate, or you use the difference to hire a foreman. Hire a local worker to be the foreman to supervise 10 imported workers, to monitor the performance and their punctuality. That's it. Mr. Tan Ka-pai. Well, the policy will have to take into account times and be adjustable and flexible. Mr. Peter SHIU moves the motion to enhance measures on importation of labor. It boils down to breaking the wage protection and expedite the importation of labor. In this day and age, it runs counter to what our economy needs. It will aggravate the economic downturn risk. So I'll oppose to it. The U.S. just announced a series of tariffs on other countries. So there is a huge risk of recession in global economy. We are externally oriented. We have to brave the storm. If it's difficult for employers to hire, then we will understand this so-called enhancement. But given the volatile external economic situation and the fact that Hong Kong's economy is lackluster, you want to expedite the importation of labor? I'm afraid you won't be able to get support. The life of workers will be harder. According to the latest manpower projection, December 2024 compared to the same period last time, private enterprises, the total number of people employed dropped by 7,000 people, 0.3%. There are 58,410 vacancies, a drop by 20%. That is indeed worrying. Well, I am a consultant of a Civil Aviation Association. The FTU has been pragmatic. We criticize because it needs criticizing. The Labor Department has done some good work when it comes to importation of labor. So far, the association I mentioned has not received any requests for assistance because of exploitation. The airport authority has been abiding by the law. But in the same site, Check Lap Kok, how come that when it comes to imported labor in the construction site, there is exploitation? That's because of a difference in regulation. The airport authority has been doing a good work with management of imported labor. But does it mean that we have to support the expansion and continuation of importation of labor? A lot of contractors told us that they have encountered difficulties. The service contractors and their workers have been supporting the operation of service of the airport. Now with imported labor, these contractors and their workers don't receive orders. They don't get work. You need to pay attention to their concerns as well. When it comes to passenger service, cargo service of aviation, it offers 130,000 job opportunities. Instead of moaning and complaining, perhaps reconsider the positioning of airport city. Make it easier for workers to live near where they work. We have a number of suggestions, that is from the Civil Aviation Society. We need to take reference of the approach in 1997. Futong Estate was given to people working in the airport as a priority. Can we do something similar? For people who have a long length of service working at the airport, then they can be given priority to live in public housing estate in Tuen Mun. There should be provision of round-the-clock staff transportation, especially during the small hours, from the airport to urban areas. For imported workers, there is direct transport provided to send them to Zhuhai from the airport, but no such thing for local workers. There should be a review of the pay structure of employees at the airport. I still hear that some cabin crew earns less than $10,000 in their base salary. But we need to give opportunities to local laborers so that we can all work together to build Hong Kong. Mr. Dennis Leung. The government launched the sector-specific scheme as well as the enhanced scheme. We now have a structural crisis. At the beginning, these schemes are there to resolve manpower shortages. But now, because of flaws and inadequate management, these have brought serious problems. Mr. Peter SHIU moves this motion to promote the relaxation of imported labor wages as well as the accommodation, but it's making the fundamental flaws even worse. I oppose to it. There is a requirement that wages should be higher than median wage, but employers make use of different ways, say for example, changing the names, breaking up the duties to circumvent that. Say for example, if you change the name of a job, then you can offer a wage that is 10 to 20% lower. If you allow imported workers to live with their family, then it will undermine the government's work to protect imported workers. We've heard about requests for assistance. Some employers will provide accommodation allowance, but they reduce their wage as well. Unemployment in 2023 has dropped from 4.5% to 3.2%. When it comes to labor-intensive sectors, there is a higher unemployment rate. Data suggested that there is direct correlation between these imported schemes as well as unemployment. There are 26 job categories covering non-skilled posts such as clerks and salesperson. The scope is too wide. Information shows that in the retail sector there is a vacancy rate of less than 5%. These enhanced measures have boosted unemployment rate. We oppose to the importation of labor for two reasons. First, the government needs to accord priority to local workers. With the increasing unemployment rate, we see that the policy is tipping towards the business sector. They want to maintain the economic drive at the expense of laborers. And these schemes makes enterprises rely on imported workers instead of investing in local labor forces. In the long run, it will reduce our competitiveness. There will be a vicious cycle. It's not conducive to passing on skills. Without a job, then you don't have any wages, and then it will dampen our economic development. The government should think twice about that. I'm from the labor sector. We urge the government to take these measures. First, suspend these as the enhanced schemes, conduct a review, set up a working group to assess wage level, market situation, suspend the, keep the quota the same until you have a result. For every local worker who lose their job because of imported workers, they should receive a subsidy and a chance to get retrained. Thirdly, penalties should be enhanced. For non-compliant employers, the penalty should be higher. Details of posts as well as wages should be made public. Our prosperity is built on fairness and equality, not at the expense of workers. Workers should be treated better. Government should seriously consider the adverse impact. Please stop thinking that imported worker is the panacea to help our economy. The government should attach importance on manpower training. Give priority to local laborers. We need to build a core on local labor force. This is a realization of a local-based government. This will give us a chance of economic prosperity. Once again, I appeal to the administration that the difficulties of local laborers should be addressed, measures to be put in place to help them. Thank you.
Mr. Louis Long. President, I think that today we're not just debating on manpower policy, but how we can help Hong Kong maintain its competitiveness. The cost of doing business in Hong Kong is high. There is insufficient supply of manpower. We have an aging population. All these are realities that we are facing. If we don't enhance the measures on the importation of labor, how can we develop high-quality productive forces? How can we enhance the competitiveness? How can we stand out among our competitors? According to the 2023 manpower projection published by the government, in 2028, we are facing a manpower shortage of 180,000. Construction sector, manpower shortage will see 45 to 55,000 in 2028. The Construction Industry Council study points out that skilled technical workers, semi-skilled workers will see serious manpower shortage. As at 2027, there will be 40,000 vacancies. The latest manpower demand survey conducted by the CIC points out that there are two types of jobs that we are seeing a shortage. That is bar vendors that amount to 20%. The sector-specific labor importation scheme for construction sector have approved 10,000 quotas for the relevant trade. However, that apply only to public works projects. In other words, private work project can only benefit when there's quotas left. And under such circumstances, private construction companies have to operate on high cost. So I hope that the government will repeal all the restrictions on private works project and to relax the job types, the accommodation arrangements to allow the imported workers to go with the contractors. Instead of asking the contractors to apply for imported workers for dedicated projects, as all government departments have the figures of manpower demand in various industries, shouldn't we plan ahead, talk to the trade, and make forward planning to cater to the manpower demand and formulate the quotas? Only by enhancing the flexibility of the labor importation scheme, relaxing the restrictions, can we enhance the efficiency of private and public works projects, lower the cost, and maintain Hong Kong's competitiveness. President, the original motion says that we should review the median wage requirement. Dr. Ngan Yu moved an amendment to cancel such requirements. That is, we should not even review the requirements. So I'm not going to support the amendment. We must look at the manpower demand to formulate the relevant policy. We must accord priority to local workers. At the same time, we should also lower our cost and maintain our competitiveness. If the wage level of imported workers is far lower than the median monthly wage, and the government mandate the employers to pay imported workers a median monthly wage of relevant positions in Hong Kong, this will result in employers having to incur a higher cost. I so submit, President. I speak in support of Mr. SHIU Ka-fai's original motion and Mr. Lee Chun-keung's amendment. If I may remind members, according to the rules of procedure, the debate should end at 1 p.m. today. At approximately 12:20 p.m., I will ask the mover to speak on the amendments, and then we will deal with the rest of the procedures. Ms. Chen Yue-ming. Thank you, President. In February, Dr. Xia Baolong came to the Hong Kong Park in the Loop. At the seminar, Dr. Xia asked Hong Kong to reform and innovate. Hopefully, there will be more collaboration among the cities in the Greater Bay Area. Hong Kong wants to achieve a breakthrough in the INT. We have to establish a park in the Loop, and we have to improve our infrastructures. We should also promote integrated development of the research and development industries in the Northern Metropolis. Here are my suggestions. I think that we should develop a legislation for the development of Northern Metropolis. There are more people who support establishing the Northern Metropolis as a SAR within an SAR. The cost of developing Northern Metropolis is high, and the time taken is very long. Our country wants the Greater Bay Area to develop itself into a INT hub so that we can promote the development of high-quality productive forces. But given our manpower shortage, the Northern Metropolis can only be completed by 2030. Can we wait that long? For important infrastructure projects in the Northern Metropolis, I'm glad that the SAR government has been seeking support from the Guangdong provisional government and the central government to import labor to alleviate the manpower shortage so that we can control the project cost in the Northern Metropolis. We've seen similar cases in 2020 during the COVID epidemic. The central government approved the construction of the quarantine facilities in a makeshift hospital in the Northern District. 20,000 construction workers from the mainland came to Hong Kong to build these makeshift hospitals and quarantine facilities. And all these facilities and hospitals were then handed over to the SAR government. The two projects took only 51 days. At the same time, a few days ago, we talked about the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Western Rail Link. It involves a tunnel of 5.4 kilometers. The Hong Kong section and Shenzhen section is of 2.8 kilometers and 2.6 kilometers. Due to feasibility study and, the Shenzhen part support the usage of a boring method to create the tunnel. As the Hong Kong section is completed by the Shenzhen authorities, I believe that the construction will be undertaken also by the Shenzhen counterparts. With the support of the Shenzhen manufacturers, we're able to expedite the project, taking reference from the Shatin Central Rail Link. The cost for constructing an tunnel is very high. I think that we should try to lower the cost. Hong Kong-Shenzhen Western Rail Link as a cross-boundary rail link, we need to align our design standards and construction process. We can work together, and I think that we should extend such collaboration to other major infrastructure projects in the Northern Metropolis. So submit. Mr. Michael Tian. President, I don't think that our importation schemes should remain unchanged. The government should have regards to the fiscal situation, the country's policy, the local demand, and formulate relevant policies. I think that we all agree that we're faced with a serious problem. This is the time when we should review our importation schemes. When I submitted my representations for the past budgets or policy address, I talked about the three problems that we face. We have high prices, high rent, high salary. By importing workers, we can solve the issue of high salary in Hong Kong. I hope that the government will look into a new mode to import workers, to allow the workers to spend the night not in Hong Kong, so that they will not enjoy any cash allowance for being an imported workers. The most important thing is that this will only apply to public works projects that complements with the national strategies. This type of positions should not be affected by the medium wage requirements. The Shui-Qiu-Qianhai rail link, as we all know, the section near the Hong Kong coastline is constructed by the SAR government by open tendering exercise. We all know about the strategic positioning of this rail link. The construction cost is high here. That's because of our high wages. Given the fiscal position of the government, it is absolutely necessary for us to adopt innovative means to lower our cost. Even if we introduce a competition by asking the mainland enterprises to place a bid, but if we ask them to pay local workers or imported workers the medium wage, then the cost will be the same. Even if MTRCL outsource the work to the mainland enterprises, the cost would not be as high as that of the high-speed rail. I think that the government should ask certain imported workers to, say, spend the night on the mainland while working in Hong Kong and not allow them to enjoy any cash allowance. The spur line of the Northern Link is a cross-boundary rail link that enjoy co-location arrangement. I think that this rail link should be constructed the same way. I must stress the benefits of this approach. The most important thing is that the cost can be significantly lowered so that we don't have to spend so much of our reserves or issue bonds to build these infrastructures that complement with the national strategy. The ones that are going to be benefited are people of Hong Kong and our taxpayers. So I support the original motion. We should review the medium wage requirement, and I hope that the government will look into the suggestions that I made. The suggestions should only apply to positions that complement with national strategies. I will not support Dr. NGAN's amendment. President, I so submit.
Dr. So Chun-keung. Thank you, President. In 2023, the government introduced sector-specific labor importation schemes and the enhanced supplementary labor scheme. They eased manpower shortage in Hong Kong. They were proactive measures, but trade unions recently said that in some sectors, there weren't enough jobs. Some workers had reduced income. They thought it was owing to the importation of workers. I thank Mr. Peter SHIU for moving this motion. Different sectors in Hong Kong need to reach a consensus in relation to this problem. Otherwise, we couldn't discuss the original motion and the amendments today. The government should not be misled into thinking we have a lot of manpower whose potential can be released soon. We need to study the labor market. Some workers are paid by cash, and they aren't included in the statistics compiled by the government. We discussed the enhancement of the measures on the importation of power, so we need to be pragmatic. I suggest 1. We need to dynamically collect data and statistics in relation to manpower. We need to introduce manpower at different levels. We need to study the figures compiled by the CNSD as well as other trade unions. We need to plug skills gaps. We need to compile a list. We need to introduce the importation schemes for different levels of jobs. Well, with these measures taken, there would be job matching, suitable jobs taken by suitable workers. There should also be a quota system in relation to the importation of manpower. We need to enhance the system and enhance transparency at the same time. We have different schemes, including the ASMTP admission scheme for mainland talents and professionals. We need to allow applicants to track the progress and submit documents electronically. For INT enterprises, for instance, employers should be allowed to introduce talents with a streamlined mechanism. We need to strike a balance between the interest of imported workers and local workers. Before the importation of workers, employers need to conduct open recruitment exercise and prove that they cannot employ appropriate local workers. They also need to set a wage level not below the median wage. Employers need to factor in other costs, such as accommodation costs, intermediary costs, and so on, in order to balance the interest of local workers and those of imported workers. The government needs to identify any illegal acts of employers. There should be a blacklist, and companies shouldn't be allowed to introduce talents into Hong Kong. Thank you, President. Mr. Pote. This is not the area I'm best at, but I have heard from other members, and I have feelings and views to express as well. There's no right or wrong on this issue. In this term of the Council, this is a topic attracting different viewpoints. With the rise of protectionism, we need to move forward. We need to fight for more interest and benefits for the labor sector. But nowadays, are employers or employees at a disadvantage? Some laborers are being deprived of. But we need to boost the economy, or do we need to learn from other jurisdictions to improve the welfare and benefits for laborers. The labor sector protects laborers. Just now, members also spoke on behalf of employers. Said Dr. So talked about having different categories. And the government needs to strike a balance. Well, we shouldn't learn from the US. We cannot allow policies to chop and change. We shouldn't do so. But we were rather slow in the past. We were slow in handling abuse cases of intermediaries. We need to step in. We need to enhance publicity. We need to enhance the level of transparency. The government needs to act more swiftly when it comes to policies. Relaxation of quotas, reduction of quotas, and so on. The government needs to act fast. Mr. Makutin talked about relaxing the requirements in relation to accommodation arrangements. Many Singaporean nationals are living in Malaysia. Some employers cannot employ enough workers, and there are deprivation issue of workers. So how can the administration solve the problem? The government cannot take a passive position. Mr. Stephen Ho said that we have a mechanism. And we shouldn't let intermediaries deprive of employees. I agree. Foreign domestic helpers, they don't have any protection. Aren't they humans? Aren't they employees? Without this mechanism, we couldn't protect foreign domestic helpers. Why is there no mechanism for FDH, whereas we need one for imported workers? We need to address the problem in a flexible manner. We need a confidence boost. We need to relax the arrangements or the requirements so that we can boost the economy and reduce unemployment. We aren't attractive enough. We lack manpower. So we need to have regard to the actual circumstances.
Mr. Ka-fai, you may now speak on the amendments. Thank you, President. First of all, I'd like to thank 38 members who have expressed their views. Whether they support my motion or my views or not, they have given us some valuable input. I'd like to respond to certain members. Mr. Chun-keung said that, mentioned about something that we could consider median wage. Well, if it's just $3,000, $4,000, then we will drag down our wage. Mr. SHIU, you are here to talk about the amendments. Dr. Ngan's amendment has been widely reported. The issue is that it's completely changed the original motion. I think the core issue is how to enhance our competitiveness. When it comes to importation of labor, we can review certain aspects, say, for example, how to reduce cost, what the wage level should be. But I'd like to say it very clearly that I am not upset by Dr. NGAN. He's only expressing his views on a concern, on a topic that he's concerned with. This platform is for us to express our views. I welcome his views, and I hope that you will all feel free to express yours. I said that we have to think very carefully. When I was new to the council, in the first 2-3 years, I was led by the labor sector. I agree that there should be further measures to release manpower amongst elderly groups or women. But it's been many years. You can now see whether that has worked. By 2028, there will be a shortage of 180,000. That's not enough. Importation of worker should be short term. I think you should not believe it. If it's a short term measure, how do you think that our economy will continue to grow? If you are a little bit rational, then you realize that you need imported labor. Well, very soon, 1/3 of our population will be over 60, I myself included. We can't do something about boosting birth rate. Well, for importation of labor in Macau and Singapore, that stands at about 20-30%. Macau's GDP per capita is the second in the world, Singapore the fourth. What about Hong Kong? 15th. Singapore imports a large number of labor. They offer the highest median wage, 34,000. I think these figures dispel your concern. Please seriously consider it. Do not resist it out of a knee-jerk reaction. In July, there is a suspension of importation of certain sectors. Well, you hear about lack of construction orders. Well, I won't insist that you should import labor in the construction sector. We have to be pragmatic. Construction cost is expensive because of high wages. As a result, property prices are high. That's why people don't buy. Property prices are high and people don't buy. As a result, our construction workers don't have a job. That's the same for other sectors.
Secretary for Labor and Welfare. President, I once again thank Mr. SHIU Ka-fai for moving today's motion. I also thank Dr. Ngaman-Yu and Mr. Chun-keung for moving their amendments. There are a total of 39 members who have spoken on this motion. I've listened carefully to the members' views. I thank them for their valuable comments. I now like to give my consolidated reply. With an aging population and a declining workforce, the government has introduced a series of measures, including strengthening the application of technology and to enhance productivity, and enhancing on-the-job training and employment support to attract potential workers to join the labor market. On the premise of prioritizing the employment of local workers, the government has enhanced the flexibility of labor importation scheme to allow employers to apply for importation in a more flexible manner. The enhanced supplementary labor scheme has been implemented for more than 1.5 years. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, the scheme has helped many employers, including small and medium enterprises, replenish their manpower to meet their operational needs. Just now, I've heard different views from members covering issues such as employment opportunities for local workers, operational cost of local enterprises, as well as the competitiveness of Hong Kong, and so on. The government will carefully consider members' views and formulate a policy on importation of labor that is in the overall interest of Hong Kong. Last year, the Labor and Welfare Bureau published a report on the 2023 manpower projection. Many members quoted some of the figures in the projection. They said that in 2028, the total workforce will go from 3.5 million in 2023 to about 3.56 million in 2028. However, the manpower supply will still be insufficient to fill the vacancies. Hong Kong's overall manpower shortfall will rise to 180,000, which is 130,000 more than that of 2023. Of these, the shortfall of skilled technical workers, for example, electronical and mechanical technicians and skilled construction workers, will range from 60,000 to 65,000, while the shortfall for non-skilled workers, including cleaners, hotel room attendants, and kitchen helpers, will range from 44,000 to 49,000. But we must pay attention to this. The figures have taken into account the impact of the existing labor importation schemes on the labor force. Given the declining workforce, the government has adopted various measures to support the local workforce, promote and improve the employment and environment, and provide skills training. Specifically, the Labor Department provides comprehensive employment services for job seekers and organizes different types of job fairs to help them secure a job. To further encourage people aged 40 or above to join the labor market, the Labor Department launched a 3-year re-employment allowance pilot scheme on the 15th of July last year. Eligible participants can receive a maximum of $20,000 of re-employment allowance. The scheme has been very well received. As at February 2025, this year, it has recorded over 35,000 participants and close to 14,000 employment cases. In addition, the Employees Retraining Board, ERB, provides market-oriented and employment-based training courses for eligible persons to facilitate their entry or re-entry into the labor market. The ERB also offers training courses tailored to the employment needs of different workers, such as the elderly and women, to encourage them to join the labor market. The ERB is now undergoing a comprehensive reform to enhance its role and positioning in providing skills-based training courses for the entire workforce. Apart from taking into account the training needs of grassroots workers, the ERB has implemented a series of short-term reform measures since the beginning of this year, including the removal of the upper limit of academic qualifications. The ERB will also invite enterprises to collaborate with ERB training bodies to diversify the direction for course development. In addition, to encourage more young people to participate in the apprenticeship schemes and join the relevant industries, an additional training allowance of $1,000 per month will be provided to registered apprentices for 3 years starting from 2024-25. Graduates will be subsidized to attend skills upgrading courses in the relevant industries. At the same time, the Vocational Training Council has been allocated resources to organize short-term on-the-job training courses to meet market demand. However, even with the enhanced employment services and training support, the supply of local labor is still clearly insufficient to meet the manpower demand of various trades and industries. In the motion debate just now, I noticed that many members talked about the median wage requirement. Members have diverse views, and they are strong. Some members think that the median wage requirement will result in an indefinite increase of salary for local workers. For some other members, they think that there will be a significant drop in the wages for local workers just because of the median wage requirement. So some members think that the requirement will increase, and some think that the requirement will lower the wages for local workers. We will be pragmatic in our review of the enhanced scheme. We will remind ourselves of the principle of the schemes, which is to accord priority to local workers. But then, of course, we must consider how it impacts the competitiveness of Hong Kong. So we want to strike a balance in our review. We have to prioritize the employment for local workers. We also have to promote the development of local economy. We have to strike a balance between the two. This is no easy task. During the course of our review, we will listen to the trade. But the most important thing is to be evidence-based and pragmatic. Regardless of the result of the review, the most important thing is to accord priority to local workers while taking into account the competitiveness of our city. Some members talked about the wages of foreign domestic helpers and imported workers. Foreign domestic helpers has its own uniqueness. Foreign domestic helpers have to live at the employer's residence, and the employers have to cover their food expenditure and accommodation. No one is willing to become a domestic helper in Hong Kong. You won't be able to find a local worker to work at your home as domestic helper unless you are extremely well off. So I don't think that we should compare imported workers with foreign domestic helpers. We have separate policies for the two types of laborers. Some members talked about the accommodation arrangements. In 2023, we introduced the enhanced labor scheme. At the same time, we have made the accommodation requirements more flexible. Before September 2023, imported workers can only stay in accommodations provided by the employers. However, starting from September 2023, if the imported workers come from the mainland, employers will allow these imported workers to live on the mainland, including those working in the airport. They live in Zhuhai. So such flexibility has been allowed under the enhanced scheme. However, if the imported workers choose to live in Hong Kong, then the employers have to offer accommodation in accordance with the standard employment contract. Some members suggest allowing the imported workers to stay with their relatives in Hong Kong. However, many complicated issues relating to employers' responsibility, assessment, and monitoring may arise. How do you prove that the accommodations is provided by the imported workers, family members, or friends? So I don't think that we should relax such restriction, because the Labor Department has the responsibility to assess the accommodation. If the accommodation is provided by the employers, we have the rights to check the interior. But if they live with their family members or friends, we have no way to enter the premises if they don't allow us to do so. So I don't think that it's appropriate for us to allow for such an arrangement. Some members are concerned about the interest of imported workers. Has there been any form of exploitation? The government attaches great importance to the employment rights of imported workers. Imported workers and local workers are equally protected by local labor legislation. In other words, imported workers and local workers are treated equally. The government also adopts a multi-pronged approach to protect the rights of imported workers, including the formulation of standard employment contracts, inspections, enforcement, administrative sanctions, as well as education and promotion. To enhance protection for imported workers, the government has set up an interdepartmental task force to follow up on suspected cases of exploitation. The Labor Department and the Development Bureau, together with relevant law enforcement agencies, will seriously follow up on complaint cases and investigate whether criminal elements are involved. For exploitation, criminal elements will be involved because the employers have to pay the salary directly to the bank account of the employees. If someone asks for a rebate of salary illegally from the employees, then this is a criminal offense. As most imported workers are from the mainland, in accordance with the regulations on management of Foreign Labor Service Corporation of the mainland, only approved labor service enterprises are authorized to arrange workers to work in Hong Kong from the mainland. Employers must hire mainland workers via the labor service enterprises authorized by the Ministry of Commerce of our country. And we have maintained close liaison with the Ministry of Commerce. I've visited Beijing many times. I've talked to the relevant directors and secretaries about the points of concern that we share. We will step up communication and collaboration. And we will improve policies where appropriate. Some members are concerned about the workplace restrictions of imported workers. Previously, we asked the employers to set out the workplace of the employees in the contract. However, the Labor Department have taken on board the views of the trade. Last year, we have been allowing employers to apply to have their imported workers work at no more than 3 designated workplaces at the initial screening stage of their application. So more flexibility have been accorded to the employers. We will take into account the views of the stakeholders when we review the scheme. We'll try to come up with the best arrangement. Some members talked about the employees' retraining levy of $400 per month. So employers have to pay a total of $9,600 for their 24-month contract. We will also review this arrangement. President, once again, I'd like to thank members for their suggestions and comments. The government will continue to review the scheme and try to improve the scheme, having struck a balance between the interest of local workers and imported workers, and we will publish the result of our review in due course.
And I call upon Dr. Ng Yu to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose to question to you that Dr. Ng Yu's amendment be passed. Mr. Chow Siu-chung claims a division. The division bell will be rung for 5 minutes. Voting begins. Please check your votes. If there are no problems, voting closes. Result displayed. From the Election Committee, 34 present, 5 for, 5 against, 24 abstain. From GC and FC, 46 present, 18 for, 16 against, and 11 abstain. I think the question is not agreed by majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment negatived. Ms. Dari Lee. President moved that in the event of further division bill being claimed in respect of the motion on enhancing the measures on the importation of manpower, labor, and the amendments thereto, the Council do proceed to each of the divisions immediately after the bell has been rung for 1 minute. I now propose the question to you, and that is the motion moved by Ms. Dari Lee be passed. Mr. Dennis Leung claims that the division. You have already made that claim.
會鐘響5分鐘。
Voting begins. Mr. So Chun-keung, are you voting?
請大家核
Please check your votes. Voting closes. Result displayed. From the election committee, 34 present, 33 for, 1 abstain. From the FC and GC, 46 present, 45 for. The question is agreed by the majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the question passed. In the event of a further division being called, the division bell will be rung by 1 minute. Mr. Lee Chun-keung, please move your amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose the question to you that Mr. Lee Chun-keung's amendment be passed. Mr. Dennis Leung claims a division. The bell will be rung for 1 minute. Voting begins. Please check your votes. If there are no questions, voting closes. The result displayed. From the election committee, 34 present, 24 2 against, 12 abstain. From the FC and GC, 46 present, 21 for, 9 against, 15 abstain. The question is not agreed by majority of two groups of members present. I declare the amendment negatived. Mr. Ka-fai, you have 1 minute 48 seconds to reply. The debate will then come to a close. Thank you. This week, a lot of people mention about why this amendment is different. Well, if the amendment is endorsed, then I have to vote against my motion. Well, I think the result would be similar to what happened to Mr. Lee's amendment. We just have to speak our minds. Mr. Chao Siu-chung mentioned about the median wage. I said, I would not agree with 9,600 and accommodation and this and that. Well, I think, Mr. Chow, I rely on you to tell the administration. Another member talked about recruitment difficulties. There is this company having been recruiting for 1 month. Well, I think, the company can make the application. Miss Judy Chen, Miss Jovi Chen talked about median wage, and that's why there are difficulties. Mr. Michael Look talked about ratio of 1 to 2, that people don't comply with that. Then report them, please. You have to give the secretary the real case. You can come to me as well. Mr. Dennis Leung talked about recruitment, about employment difficulties, high employment. In 2015, compared to now, catering, construction, and retail unemployment rate is the same. And I put the question to you that Mr. Ka-fai's amendment be passed. Mr. Ka-fai's motion be passed. Mr. Kwok-wai-keung claims a division. The bell will be rung for 1 minute. Voting begins. Please check your votes. If there are no questions, voting closes. Result displayed. From the Election Committee, 34 present, 15 for, 2 against, 17 abstain. From GZ and FC, 46 present, 20 for, 10 against, 15 abstain. The motion is not agreed by each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion negatived. Meeting is adjourned. We will resume on the 16th of April at 11 o'clock Wednesday.